Y... Jairo. Jairo. Oi. Oh. Bujaku. Bujaku. Chodź do mnie. Chodź do mnie. Also, hello. Is there anybody here? Let me see. Let me see if there's anybody here. Should be talking to Anastasiya today. Top chat. That's unforgivable. Copy. Uh-oh. Oh, wow. This video is getting traction. Yeah. Alrighty. Oh, I have to link it to someone. As in, I also have to link it to a page. Let's go. Hello? Oh, wait, I cannot hear you.
A sec, it's me. It's my fault. Can you hear me now?
Yes, perfectly loud.
I forgot to put the switch on the mic.
Perfect.
Genius technology over here.
E. How are
hmm
you?
You know, getting by, I guess.
E?
I can't see you though.
Yes.
No,
I have
that's
to turn myself off here and then turn myself on the my camera cannot take one more than one input at once. Have to
Oh
click on
yeah, I
something.
forget.
Yes.
I think it's not the first time I'm saying this.
E.
I forget. I'm sorry.
No, it's
But
okay.
anyhow, I can stare at myself as well. It's fine.
Uh
uh,
E. Hello?
Something is going on. The two little dots. Oh yeah, I can. Thank you.
E. E.
You are in a mysterious blue light. Oh, you're no longer in a mysterious blue light.
My
Just with the
lighting
books.
is very specific because my little lamp died because my little puppy threw it off and now it's dead.
Oh no,
Not the puppy,
puppy
the
attacks.
little lamp.
Oh, I figured, I figured it wasn't the puppy, but it's a vibe. It's a blue
Yeah,
screen, mysterious thing. You like a detective researcher,
yeah. But
connecting dots.
the puppy did try to kill himself as well. I
Oh
stopped
no,
him. Yes, because he ripped out the socket out of the wall with his teeth and he started biting
oh
through it.
no.
Yeah.
My rabbit once tried to do like an escape, I guess you could say, from the cage, and
Oh,
I think my sister just forgot to shut it, like actually shut, close it, the door in the cage. So he managed to kind of like open it up, I guess, with like his teeth or like his paws, fuck knows, honestly. And then he managed to get out without anyone noticing. And
oh,
he was running around in the kitchen, and he got bored with just by himself because he's usually, not by himself when he's running around.
yeah.
And with nobody to play, he decided to chomp on a wire
Oh,
that
yeah.
was the electrical wire. And then later, actually, we found him in the morning. He was alive, but my father said that he just chomped on the exactly right part of the wire, not to electrocute himself.
Yeah.
So if he like chomped like a little bit to the left or a little bit to the right, he would be like basically electrocuted in the
Right.
morning when we would have found him. So yeah, that happened one time.
Yeah.
He was lucky, I guess, that he didn't proceed to chomp on the rest of the wire. He was like, "Ah, no, it's not. Doesn't taste good. I'm gonna, I'm gonna go someplace else," and survived. Actually, yeah.
Yeah, I used
So
that special spray that dogs hate with the smell that dogs hate, and now he doesn't come near
the the,
the
the
wire
stuff.
anymore. Yeah.
Well, I don't know if that works like on a rabbit. It was also the only time he ever tried to eat the wires. He isn't like particularly interested in them for a rabbit. So that was the one time, and he nearly fucking killed himself. So I don't know, but he's very old though now, so he's about to die. Unfortunately, I think
Oh.
quite soon. Yeah, he has been ill for a while, and we are trying to make him better, but it doesn't work like particularly well. So he's like falling over. We have to sit with him all night. It's like a bit of a bunny watch right now in this house.
Oh.
But maybe he will be better though. So we don't want to like put him down too fast. If we can probably help him, maybe.
Yeah.
If not, then we'll have to. He's 13 though, which is very old for the rabbit. Um, yeah.
Oh. My dog apparently will live only like 9 or 10 years. 13 is max.
Mm.
This breed
His
just.
his breed usually lives like about 8 years, so he's pretty much an old fart
Oh.
as far as rabbits go. Yeah, he's a long living rabbit, that's for sure. When he brought him to the vet, they were like, "Oh damn, like he's pretty feisty for literally like a ancient rabbit." So
Yeah.
yeah, we shall see.
He lives a lot as well.
Mm. He doesn't hear much though. which is probably for the better because he
Probably.
doesn't get spooked by the explosions and shit. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that's not bad. Yeah.
My puppy would probably get a heart attack.
Mm.
He's
As
afraid.
far as animals, yeah, as far as animals go, it seems like the most prone to actually dying because of the explosions is birds. So like
Oh yeah.
parrots, things like that, seems to be dropping dead like all over the fucking country. I had so many people like reporting on that and talking about that, and dogs seems to be like nervous but sort of all right. Cats doing the best, I think. They're faring the best in terms of like explosions and stuff like that. But yeah, but parrots and like all sorts of birds seem to be like really having a very bad time. Actually, I had a friend whose parrot died. He was 15 years old, so he lived like for 15 years in the family. Could have lived just as much, so like up to 30 or even 40.
Oh damn.
And yeah, there was like an explosion, no, quite close. Like I would say like 100 meters 200 meters away from the apartment, and the bird just dropped dead basically because of the proximity of the explosion.
Like
You
recently,
know.
just an item fell down. I heard the puppy make like this whiny sound, as if something happened. So I thought something happened, and it was just um, an item fell. Not even at him, quite
Oh,
far away
so
from him. So he just got scared of
not
it.
not the bravest of dogs, I
No,
imagine.
no. He's
Mm.
7 months old, and he's afraid of people.
Aw. What type of dog is he?
German Shepherd.
Oh, that's weird. They're usually not that scared. I
Yeah,
had like pretty intense ones, and people usually have them as guard dogs and shit.
yeah,
So,
because the guy that I got him from told me that he was just raised with two sisters for those 7 months, and then he was
mm,
put with little puppies as well. So because the guy went to the hospital, so he didn't have time to socialize him or separate him from the
mm,
siblings and from the puppies. And then I took him in, and when I took him in, he was only friendly to me. He only liked me. He barked at my brother and at my mom,
mm.
and well, he's afraid. Yeah,
Well, in case something happens, you will have to defend him then.
yeah.
Not the other way around, I imagine.
No, but
But that's fine.
when he sees people outside, he usually goes to my side and hides behind me.
Well, maybe it will change
Oh,
when if he becomes older. Who knows?
I think
I
we're
actually had
about
a
to see a siren.
maybe
Um,
we had like a fuck ton of drones recently, and every day basically she had drones attacks in
yeah,
Kharkiv.
yeah.
This
There's
seems to be our scout drone right now, so not that big of a deal. I do have an open window though, so I will hear it if it's close.
yeah.
Um, hmm
I know
We
there's
had
a
one recently.
drone alarm in Kiev as well.
Yeah, they pretty much like throwing drones every day, I would say, for a week and a half at least. So we have a
There's
pretty big attack, like more than 20 explosions with drones in Kharkiv recently, relatively. And four of them have been in my particular part of town where I live. So
oh
that was actually very fun. But what can you do?
yeah. You can you can try to uh, be brave, but
We actually had a funny thing. My godmother came around to visit. She has been basically staying in Canada since the full-scale invasion, almost like from the start. Like she has been like here for a couple of days, and then she moved away, and she came to visit and to see like the doctors and like get some appointments and all that sort of stuff. Apparently, you can't get normal doctors in Canada. I don't know, like literally everyone Everyone who moves to Canada comes here and visits all the doctors, all the like appointments, all the things, and then goes back again. I don't know. Either
Right.
it's very expensive, perhaps, or it's just not like really accessible as much. I have no idea. But she came for that, and she stayed one day. No, no one, 2 days in Kharkiv with us, basically. And I was like, it's fine, we don't have like that much like glide bombs, that much explosions in Kharkiv anymore. It's relatively have been chill for like a couple of months, and you're gonna be fine. And she's like, okay, okay. So she comes around, and the exact day she's here, we have 20 drone strikes, and one when she was in the bathroom was so massive and close to us that all the doors opened in the apartment and the windows and everything, and her like door as well in the bathroom. And she was like super duper scared because she's so not used to it, unlike us. And we were like, just whatever, chilling. Like me, my sister, like my mom, everyone is just, it isn't bothered basically much
Yeah.
by that. But, unpleasant, but not like the end of the world, right? And she was like, she was trying so hard not to be like a pussy basically compared to us. But it was definitely difficult for her because she's not used to it,
Yeah.
obviously. And yeah, so it was kind of funny. She thought she would be like full on screeching. If I'm honest, I wouldn't judge her much for that. I mean, obviously, but
Yeah.
she tried like her best to be the same as us, not to react too much. Although it did explode quite literally, like I would say like 1 or 2 minutes away. So it was quite close, and but yeah, I just realized how fucking insane we all are, just in comparison, because everyone in the house was like, no, like it's not a big deal at all. Yeah, it was just funny,
No,
I
this
guess.
this situation is a bit, well, insane.
Yeah, but you just get used to it, and you just don't really feel like it's insane anymore. It's just like, routine. And then the person comes around who is not actually living in insanity. And their reactions are pretty fucking normal if you think about it. And you, in comparison, look insane, actually.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that was kind of what happened. Well, then. Oh, then one of the drones actually hit the train, and
Oh,
she started also to get really quite spooked because she will use the train to go back to Kiev from here.
right.
Yeah, and she was like, "Oh fuck, they dragged the train," and then like, "Well, it happens a lot," and she's like, not thinking. I wasn't really good at making her feel better. Let's put it like that,
Right.
but by saying it happens a lot, yeah, probably not the best thing to say.
Oh.
Um,
I
yeah.
remember going on a train from Kiev to Lviv, I think, and there was some military equipment that passed us by on the tracks.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember looking at it and thinking to myself, wow, if something hit us right now, according to some people, would be legitimate military targets because military equipment passed us by.
Yeah, that's actually such a fucking good point. I have been like thinking about this recently because when you apply like the rules of war, quote unquote, right, to like an abstract sort of situation that has nothing to do with you, it's like, kind of like completely different when you actually live in it. Because, for example, if I pass by, like let's say some sort of like a factory, right,
Yeah,
that produces drones, let's say, or something, right,
yeah,
and technically, like by the law, like it is a legitimate sort of target,
yeah,
but I will be blown up anyway. And like a bunch of civilians as well, and this idea of like casualties and of the like the collateral, right?
damage,
It
yeah,
kind of becomes like a little bit wonky, but at the same time, in my personal opinion, no targets are legitimate in Ukraine because Russia
yeah,
attacked us illegally. Yeah, so it's not like they don't have a legitimate cause altogether to actually attack
yeah.
anything
But
in
I
Ukraine.
still thought to myself that there
Hmm.
would be people that would argue that I got blown up and it was perfectly kosher.
I mean, yeah, you do have people. Some people argue that my entire country should be blown up because it's perfectly kosher. Because basically Yanukovych is a legitimate president.
Yeah,
So you make there's arguments to be had, I suppose.
president in
I
exile. even though he agreed to step down.
Yeah.
You
I mean,
plenty.
I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't know how much you know, like, have you spoke with people about this, but this has been a meme for like since 2014 about Yanukovych legitimate. Basically, like, legitimely is what we say. It's just basically, the memes about Yanukovych being a legitimate president. And I swear, like, didn't expect to hear this meme in 2025 from Americans and as an argument of justification of the Russian invasion. It's just really like kind of funny to speak about it like literally more than a decade.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just quite something, I'd say.
Yeah, I know that the
Mhm.
attitude to the Polish attitude to Euromaidan was from the beginning very positive
Mm.
because all the older people from the Solidarity movement went to report on it and basically saw that as an analog to the Solidarity movement, if that makes
I
sense.
guess. Hmm.
Because
Hmm.
they thought to themselves, younger people sort of united with the older generation and protested together just like Solidarity, and that's pretty cool, and went to report on it. I think Polish reporters
Mm.
were one of the first that went.
I think so. Yes. In terms of like there were also on the ground people as well, like reporting and things like that. Oh, wait a second. It's our artillery trying to take it down.
Oh, okay.
Oh, it's close. It's close. I gotta go.
Okay. Look at the plushy thing. How is everyone doing? Well, no one's in the side chat and on Twitch. Philippe Auguste. Hello. We should do a raid on Twitch or something.
Whoa, that was close.
Well, luckily it was just
Yeah.
close and not here.
Yeah, I went to I just heard it getting closer, and my mom and my sister and everyone and dragged the rabbit in the corridor. I don't know if you can really hear it as much, but I can maybe send it to you.
No,
I tried to record.
you have a good noise suppression, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, the headphones and shit, but I can send you the little clip on Discord so you can,
Okay.
show it if you want. It's not as loud as it could have been because it has been taken down, it seems. It
Right.
didn't explode.
Oh,
It did explode,
right.
but by being hit,
Yeah,
basically,
yeah,
but
yeah.
not but by getting in someone's house, essentially.
Damn.
But you can a little bit hear it, I think.
Yeah, I could hear it a little bit. Like the,
Hmm.
I think my father's organization wrote a thing at the time, a statement. And there were organizations in Poland that wrote a statement, and I think that the best one that I've seen written about Euromaidan was when, uh, I think I've sent it to you at one point, that our fear is first of all that the West will just basically throw Ukraine under the bus.
Mm.
Was during Euromaidan, and the second is that once a president uses live ammunition against his citizens, he basically loses all legitimacy to
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, with
governing.
there's another one flying by, but I will be on the lookout and go away if I need to. But
Yeah.
one headphone out, I suppose, is how we're gonna do it. Otherwise, I might not hear it incoming. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people had been doing like relatively all right coverage. I would say that the further you are away, the shittier the coverage. It seems like in terms of like further you are to the west or like in another continent. No shade to all shade actually to United States for their coverage of that, and all of that is quite understandable. I also think like a lot of people can obviously relate much closer to the goal, the aim of the Maidan in general, about the European integration, about getting away from corruption, Russian oligarchs,
Yeah.
Russia in general, Russian influence. I would say like most everyone who is can be named as quote unquote post-Soviet, right? Can
Yeah.
be can relate to that to some degree. Yeah. I mean, we have this like meeting now that is I think concluded between Ukraine and America with the Saudis, with the Saudi Arabia, and apparently there have been, I don't know if you heard it, just recent
Yeah,
news.
I've
There have
heard it.
been
Yeah.
30 days like the ceasefire, intermittent ceasefire. I guess from the United States side, the suggestion to do it, and our side agreed, and I really don't think Russia will agree to that.
Yeah,
So
and said that Russia has to agree to that, and also that
mhm.
the United States will graciously pause in the delivery of weapons and
Oh
intel.
yeah, yeah. Pause. Yeah.
That's also
They
part of the recent
the
development.
I believe they said that the intelligence will be back either way. I think because they have
Yeah.
get I think they got like a insane backlash because of this decision. So maybe it's not really kind of like, because when you're like appealing to the taxpayers and all of that, like we don't want to pay money, but intelligence is basically free.
Yeah.
So it's not like you're like actually can appeal even to that argument of not giving American money, quote unquote, to us, right? And they also said like military aid might be renewed, but I'm like
Yeah.
not hopeful about that yet. I want to see when it's done, and also it's in the case that Russia doesn't agree, I believe, to the whole 30-day stop, pause, whatever, right? I'm not like 100% certain though. Like
The
I don't know
intel thing
exactly.
has been crazy on a few other
Mm.
account counts, like the whole little spat between Elon Musk and Radosław Sikorski. That was very
I
strange.
participated in that struggle. Have you seen the meme someone did, like Ukrainians and Polish people
Yeah, yeah,
usually
yeah,
like
yeah.
and then when Space Junkie insults Sikorsky, that was really kind of funny in my opinion, because that was basically me. I don't usually like I don't literally fight with Polish people that much, to be honest. Like I don't have like much reason to, but I would say that a lot of like people have some gripe with a lot of like Polish comments about Ukraine and all of that.
Yeah.
And then when the fucking Space Junkie like comes along, everyone is like, get her the fuck away from Radoslaw Sikorski, you bitch. Like everyone was like super mad, and he
Usually, actually,
came to his defense.
when there are super Polish nationalists and I talk to them, they usually assume I'm Ukrainian and start fighting with me.
Oh, really? Because
Yeah,
of the
that happened to
because of
me.
the
It happened to me a whole lot in text,
because,
actually.
because you're not serving Polish nationalism, I imagine,
Yeah,
very
or
well.
something. They usually just jump into calling me Ukrainian and that Ukraine never had kings, so it's not legitimate.
Strong argument.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's. I mean, what can you even say to this sort of argument? I don't know. Like I'm floored. I don't know how
I
to
mean,
appeal to our legitimacy as a nation because we didn't have kings, although we did have actually technically. I mean, if you
technically
count
speaking,
even of yeah.
even if you count the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, every king
Mm.
of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth had a million titles, and among them was the king of Kiev, uh,
Yeah.
Kingdom of Poland, Grand Duchy of Lithuania, and a bunch of other titles. So
I mean, they as is from. I didn't really speak much with like hardcore like Polish nationalist people, but sometimes it seems like they think that we don't have like a claim towards any of that, and they do. So maybe that's why.
Yeah,
Although
usually.
I'm really not in the mood to be honest to talk about like fucking Ruriks and kings and
Yeah,
I
usually
lived.
it's
Yeah,
usually I feel like I'm talking to people that are a bit challenged when I have these.
that's very nice of you to express it that politely. I'd say a bit challenged.
Yeah, it genuinely does feel that way when they talk about these topics.
Well, yeah.
It's almost like,
Unfortunately,
yeah,
yeah. Unfortunately, we kind of have to speak about the most stupid ass thing. I'm trying to remove the R word if you don't like it. I don't know how you feel about that one, but
yeah.
it's just
Twitch is gonna
yeah.
is gonna ban me, even though I'm small.
Yeah, I mean, I will try, but I don't make any promises. So can it can slip up. So it's just
No.
it's not the most polite word, but it is a juicy word.
Yeah,
It does feel good saying that. I'm
it
not
is a
gonna lie.
punch.
So yeah,
Actually,
and
I remember there's a Polish person that's American, and she was in Poland with me, and I used the word, and she was a hardcore Trumper. It was many years ago,
mm.
and she corrected me and scolded me for using the word. The only time I was scolded for using the word was by a hardcore Trumper.
That's very funny.
I
Is she
know.
okay with them using words like that now on mostly people who are quite vulnerable populations and things like
No,
that?
no, she
How?
would scold me for
Uh,
using the R slur, and then she would go and say, but also the Muslims will take over and replace our culture.
I see. Well, as long as you're polite, apparently.
Yeah, that was during the
Yeah.
first in the first term of Trump.
Mm. I
Yeah.
wonder what she thinks now. Jesus.
Oh God.
Um, it hasn't been a fun ride so far, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
So what?
Yeah.
What's the slur-inducing thing that you wanted to?
Slur inducing thing. Oh,
Yeah,
damn.
you said that you
So
have
many
to talk
things.
about it.
Yeah, I just don't want to talk about like the. It's just so like mind blowing that you really have to talk about the most thing, because
Yeah.
our word thing, because it's just really it has nothing to do like with now. And sometimes you will like appear on like streams or like podcasts or like debates and things like that, right? And you want to talk about like actual like recent things. And
Yeah.
by recent, I mean like a decade or two history, right? And now what is happening now. And instead you have to speak about things that like really, even even if we agree, like for example with the whole Yanukovych was not in Russia but like 1 kilometer away from the border when
Right.
he was declared illegitimate. If you want to make that argument, like you can, but just what's the point of that argument? Like because your broader narrative is what I have the problem with. The broader narrative is that legitimizes and justifies this Russian invasion and
Yeah.
annexation of Crimea. So that's really like, even if I agree to what you're saying, which I didn't, obviously most of it was lies on that debate, right? But it's just, even if I did agree that we had like a very big like conflict between people who voted for Yanukovych and who did, although it's bullshit, like a lot of people on Maidan voted for Yanukovych, like most of my friends who were there voted for Yanukovych because they were from the east and they
Yeah.
voted for him, but they got disillusioned by his decision to go against European Union. They also got disillusioned by obvious corruption. They got disillusioned by the beating of the protesters and in Kiev, students, all of that. So that affected people, changed their minds, right? It's
Yeah.
not like it's in concrete and people could never change their minds. And yeah, but other than that, even if it was like everyone was so mad that Maidan happened in the east, which is not true. But even if it was, like, who really gives a fuck? Like, no, it doesn't like affect anything. If even if it was our internal problem, our internal, political
Yeah.
situation in the country, it doesn't affect. It doesn't give a right to our neighbor to invade us and to annex shit.
Oh, there are
It's just
people
it.
that would say that it does.
But on what right? Like, it doesn't
Well,
appeal to
the
not
logic
international
is
law. Not anything.
The
Yeah.
logic basically is, and that ignores international law because the logic sort of is a whole different mindset than international law. The logic is they're basically the big countries that are the big players on the international
Yeah,
stage.
Mersheimer shit. Yeah, they can. The big players can do big things, but
Yes, and the
fuck that shit.
small ones
Obviously,
are
yeah.
basically just
Mhm.
there to act as pawns.
Well, we don't
They're,
agree. Fuck you. You know.
yeah, as, I
What can I say?
mean, what do you say at
Yeah, we
that point?
disagree.
Like,
Yeah, you disagree.
I spoke with that person that was on the panel. Lactoid, was it?
Oh, for you.
Before, yeah,
My condolences about that.
before that, there was a bunch of other
Mm.
people as well, and he basically said that um, Ukraine never should join NATO because it's within the sphere of influence of
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Russia.
I wish he would made that argument when I was there actually, because that's an argument. That's the narrative, right? But they hide it because it's so unpalatable. Honestly, that
Yeah,
narrative they try to like mask it with not Elon Musk, but mask it with the Ukrainian people are dying and all of that like virtue signaling bullshit, like
yeah,
draft is slavery and you have to like you're dragging people to
yeah,
war and all of that, right? And it's just don't say this shit. Like you don't believe it, I don't believe it, nobody believes it. Just say the thing you think. Say that you are basically a vassal of Russia. You are like Russia is the big guy here, China is the big guy there, America is the big guy there, and we decide what you little insignificant subhuman losers are going to do with your life. That's it, right?
yeah,
So make that argument, and then we can talk about this. But stop like fucking pretending that like you have some sort of like the care for the people die and all of that. No, you don't. You don't give a fuck.
like
You
Trump
think
does.
we're shit. Yeah, you think we're like, trash people and you don't care. That's fine. I think you're trash too. We can talk about that. But just yet let's let's just not pretend. And you have to talk about this like not a real thing they think, but those like stupid like platitudes and stupid virtue signals and
Yeah,
whether Yanukovych was one step away from the Russian border or two step away from Russian border. Like it's just I don't want to talk about that. That doesn't make any sense to talk about
yeah.
that, you know?
He apparently even wrote a whole
Mhm.
resignation speech as well, Yanukovych.
Who cares at the end of the day, even if it was like our like courts decided it was constitutional, he hasn't been at a job, so to speak,
Yeah,
whether
and
he was
his
in
only job
Russia
at
or
that
in
point
Donbass.
was to organize earlier elections anyway, so.
Yeah, so basically, like even if he was whether he was in Russia already at the time of voting or he was like I said 2 steps away from Russian border, right? He wasn't in Kiev.
Yeah.
He wasn't in Verkhovna Rada. That's all that matters,
And
right? He wasn't there.
the most baffling thing is that he agreed to a deal, he agreed to do the earlier election, and the only thing that resulted in the thing, in him getting voted out, was the deal happening that he was supposed to do anyway, the early election by the temporary
Yeah.
government. So that's.
Yeah, but like I said, at the end of the day, we can talk about all the factual things he got wrong, about like the things you just said, right? About whether it was constitutional, whether it was not,
Yeah.
about like how it doesn't matter. So, like, why we're spending hours talking about this thing that doesn't matter? What matters is you think that the Russia has a divine right to decide what the fuck is going
Yeah,
on in
might
this
makes
country.
right basically. He would
Yeah, and I don't. That's it.
and
We
he
are
gave
not gonna
me.
agree on anything
Yeah, that's why I
at that
wrote you
point.
before the debate.
Yeah.
I wrote you that there are certain fundamental differences that I just
Yeah,
we
and
just
and uh,
don't
and the
won't
guy
agree
has
on.
like fucking flag behind him, like the American flag, and he's like
Yeah,
talking to me about like, why didn't you fucking then give up to Great Britain then? Like they had right, to decide how much
yeah.
you pay,
Because
how much you own to the king.
he basically
Yeah,
also
it's
gave me
just
an example of Canada. If Canada wanted to join some coalition, then the US would invade it in a heartbeat. And from that perspective, it's perfectly understandable why Russia invaded Ukraine, because it also is joining a sphere that is outside of its own. I
Yeah, like,
asked.
like make arguments like that. He didn't make any of that when
Yeah,
he won the
it
panel
never
with us.
went
Yeah,
there, but
bitched out,
I
as
talked
we
to him,
say.
and it sort of went there. I asked if
Yeah.
Poland should have joined NATO in that case, because it feels like he wanted to say like Poland should have not been allowed to join NATO in that case, right?
I mean, by that logic, yes, because you're also
Yeah,
be threatening Russian red lines or some shit, right?
yeah.
Not that
So
there isn't NATO already on their border, but whatever.
he basically said that
Uh,
the reason why Poland joined was because Russia was one weak at the time. So screw all, um, agreements, because if Russia's weak, then might makes right does not apply because Russia was weak. I guess.
Jesus Christ,
And two,
how
it didn't
very
cost
smart.
it didn't cost a lot of money to the United States.
I see. Well, yeah. I mean,
But
like I said,
he
if the
added
person worries about, sorry, yeah.
he actually added, if Russia was not weak, then yes, Poland should not have joined NATO ever.
Like I said, I wish he made that argument. I mean, he bitched out, so whatever, right? Instead, you have to listen about the exhausting, like suffocating. You just want people dead, and
Yeah,
I don't. But while I am bombed and my people are killed, and that motherfucker sits in the United States, ocean away, unbothered. Okay,
yeah,
it's just absolutely exhausting to listen to that. I think to maybe even anyone in Europe, but especially in us who are actually like a fucking dying. Okay,
yeah,
so yeah, it's just pretty fucking annoying, and it gets. I mean, it was kind of funny to watch Dylan scream at him, though. I'm not gonna lie.
yeah. He gets
I like
heated.
that. That was funny for me because he actually kind of saved me from screaming because I think I would have if it wasn't Dylan. So I looked more,
Yeah,
polite in that conversation because
I
of
have
Dylan.
a
Mm.
saint's patience in those conversations.
Mm,
The second topic that came up was the language, and it
mm.
never came up on the panel, but it came up in my little VC, and a bunch of people joined in, and
It kind of did because he was like talking about the Russian speakers being prosecuted, and I started screaming at him in Russian. So that was a meme moment. But
yeah, but
um,
it never
yeah,
went to the lengths, to the depths, quote unquote, that
mm.
it went in that VC, where he and a bunch of other people started saying that there are Nazi tier laws, um,
No, yeah, yeah, language laws.
that
Yeah,
yeah,
I imagine he swallowed like all the Russian talking points.
he
I
mentioned
actually,
one about
mm.
Kiev banning Russian items of culture, something like that,
Yes, he mentioned that to me. And it literally never happened.
and
Or the only thing you can say was banned was actual like after 22 active like Russian assistance like to Russia. You
right,
can say that probably could say that about the church, about like Moscovian patriarchate. You can say that
yeah,
because they will also assist in Russian. We are at war and we have martial law, obviously, right? So laws are a little bit less, let's say, soft than they would be otherwise, right? But yeah, it's just absolute bullshit. Like
yeah.
nothing
But
was
about
banned.
Kiev,
People
I
proceed.
was like, I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure
Mm.
people can speak Russian in Kiev, in public just fine, and a bunch of people
Yes,
were
of
like,
course.
I'm not so
Yes.
sure. I don't know.
Yeah.
Can they? Can a
Yeah.
shopkeeper? Can this? Can that? And I'm like, I mean, every time I'm
Yes.
there, I can hear
Yeah.
Russian.
Yes.
Like
I mean,
when I was
he.
on the street, a shopkeeper, I was a shopkeeper, basically waved at me. You're the Polish person, aren't you? Yeah. You speak Russian? A bit of Ukrainian, and they were impressed.
I mean, it's just that he appeals to the law that he just misuses in terms to do propaganda. Basically, what he appeals to is the law that was that businesses in Ukraine should strive basically to address people in the national language, which is Ukrainian and has been
Yeah,
since '91,
but
right? So it's since we got independence. So basically, how this would actually look in practice would be is that you come into the shop and I worked at the shop by the way, so it applied to me as a seller in the shop.
yeah,
So people, I would greet the person in Ukrainian. For example, they come along in the shop and they'll be "Добрий день, вітаю," something like that. So like hello, good day to you, blah blah blah, right?
yeah,
And that's it, pretty much. That's all I'm obligated to do. And then when they speak with me in Russian, for example, I'm fully fucking free to continue speaking Russian with them.
what would
So
be the Russian analog?
what would be the what? Oh,
The Russian,
the
yeah.
I mean, you could say like basically like "здравствуйте" or something like that.
Oh my
Say hello
god.
and yeah, 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 yeah. And
It's like it's like I hear Ukrainian. It's like Dobry den, witаю. It sounds like Dzień dobry, witam.
yeah, I mean, it is close to
and
Poland. That's not news.
and I
Yeah.
hear the Russian version. I'm like, okay, that just sounds like a foreign word.
I mean, you can technically say "добрый день" as well in Russian. You can say that. I mean,
Okay.
it works. Yeah, yeah. But yeah, "здравствуйте" something is in Russian. Like you no like analogous word in Ukrainian. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
and especially in Polish, probably.
Витая would be like "добро пожаловать" in Russian. So also quite different.
Yeah,
Um,
but
yeah.
the problem that I have with the language thing is that they usually cited things like, oh, this politician got fined because he used Russian in a public speech,
Good. Fuck him.
and I just said,
Sorry.
well, yeah,
Ukrainian nationalism popped up.
I'm okay with that actually.
Yeah, I am too because Ukrainian
Or
needs protection. Like,
yeah,
it's not Russian that needs protection.
yeah,
And
like the
also you can argue, by the way, if you're smart, if you're not that guy, an R word guy, but you can, if you're smart, you can argue like it's a stupid argument in my opinion, but still smarter. You can be like, well, shouldn't like Ukrainian just be one national language when there half the population speaks Russian? So shouldn't there be like two national languages? You can have that conversation.
yeah.
I wouldn't agree to it, but that's like a smart conversation you can have
I
about
think
this.
before
But in
2014, some people argued for it.
yeah, politicians as well. Yeah, there was a lot of argument for it, but at the end of the day, like I said, I never supported that because, for example, like I spoke Russian, I speak Russian still quite a lot
Yeah,
with like my, I live in Kharkiv, so a lot of people speak Russian. My
yeah,
family does, so I usually kind of like just go with the flow, essentially. So basically, whatever language a person speaks to me, I just speak in that language to them,
yeah.
basically. So that's kind of like the
The
method
language
I have.
thing is very infuriating. Usually, I've
Mm.
heard a person give me an argument that, oh, didn't you know that Ukraine banned Russian language from school? And I said, okay, what was the
No, we didn't.
ban? What was the ban?
Hmm.
And they sent me an article, and it just said, okay, more. um more subjects will be taught in Ukrainian
In
instead
the
of
Ukraine, yeah, that's it. Yeah,
Russian.
Russian wasn't
But
banned. It was
that's
still
not a
taught.
ban. That's just
Yes. Yeah. They lie. They just lie.
and
They just read lies and they repeat them. That's it,
then we
pretty
went
much.
to the most infuriating thing for me personally, because they said that basically Russification is a thing that you get taught about from basically primary school. You hear the word Russification for the first time when you're like
Mm.
10 or something, 9 maybe, you know? That's where I started hearing the word Russification and learning about it. And it's so surreal for a person to just basically throw at me an argument of, well, once Russification takes hold, to try to reverse it is basically cultural genocide.
Oh my god, what a oh, sorry.
Yeah, I mean
What?
the word
I-
basically
oh,
just like just
Yeah,
you really
yes.
you're really like I
So what you're saying to me, Lucy, is that he's much more actually R-worded than he was even in my conversation. Thank you. I assumed that, but it's just that cultural genocide. Fuck
and a
off.
lot of
Cultural
people
genocide is restoring your native culture. That's cultural genocide.
yeah, a lot of people
Um,
just joined in and started agreeing with
mhm.
that. So I asked, okay, I even went off Ukraine. I said, do we can we agree do we think that Belarus is a sovereign country? And they went, well, maybe they have close ties to Russia. Are they not free? Who knows? I was like, wow. Okay, first of all,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, that's I guess that's a disputable thing now if Belarus is sovereign or not. Like, come on. Okay. How
You
are
mean
you
you
gonna
brought up
argue
the
that
most like
I just have
obvious
strong
example,
ties
and
with
they're like,
Russia? They're
I
just
don't
close
know.
neighbors, you know?
Yeah, just neighbors, just chilling, big chilling.
So I just skipped debating that whole thing and went, okay, let's
Mm-hmm.
say that there is, and there was a whole argument about that as well. In this year, 80% of people declare to be Belarusian speakers. Years later, like it drops to 50 or less, and you have a leader, Lukashenko, that says that Belarusian is a poor language in which nothing of value can be expressed. Yeah, then you have that, and then you have basically the pushing out of Belarusian out of education. Okay,
Mm.
so let's say we have a government that changes, Lukashenko's out, uh, not so close neighbors anymore. Belarus moves away from uh, Russia. Would it be okay for Belarus to try to reverse the trend and try to reverse the proportions back to Belarusian, right? Would that be okay to be done via legal means? And they were like, well, I don't know.
Oh
It gets
my God,
dicey because of the
talking with these
genocide
people.
thing,
What the
the
fuck do
cultural
they know?
genocide.
Like they're fucking of like Westoids. They don't fuck all about like Americans don't even have an. I guess they do now. I mean, I
And
wanted to say they don't have a national language, but they do now
they do now.
after the
And they're
Trump.
like,
Yeah, but
well,
it's just
and
why
I'm
are you
like,
talking about
and
this shit? You know
one
nothing
of
about it.
one of them said confidently, well, yeah, depending on how it's done, it would be perfectly okay. And I said, okay, what would be the good way to do it then? And the person
Basically,
said,
our way, I'd say,
and the person
the
said,
Ukrainian way.
the
Yeah.
person said, via education. I said, oh, okay, via education. So
Would you
that would
do it?
require replacing Russian in schools
Uh,
with Belarusian, right? No.
oh, I see. How
I
do you
was
do
like,
that then? Yeah, yeah. I mean, it doesn't matter. Those people don't matter at the end of the day. Like you can't
yeah.
convince them
But
otherwise. It's just
then
it's just
I
waste
like
of energy to
because
speak with
one of
them.
them said, "Isn't Ukrainian basically just a dialect of Russian, an offshoot of Russian?"
What can you say to that? Like I said, it's
Like
just a repeat like all the Russian propaganda points.
there's
Yeah.
the argument there is very simple, but those languages developed completely separately. Like,
It doesn't matter though. It doesn't matter. I can make a linguistic argument, right? I
yeah,
can
yeah,
say,
of course.
well, actually, this language is as different as the example as the difference between Italian and French. Like it's a
Yeah,
big
but when
difference.
I started
Yes.
talking about these things, they just look at me baffled and they didn't know about it. Like
Yeah, I
I said,
mean,
like the
they know nothing though, like
like
Jon
the
Snow.
the
Okay,
entirety
so
of what became Belarus and Ukraine just were part of the Commonwealth and they developed there, and what became Russia
mm-hmm.
became part like it was in the uh, Mongolian Empire. That the Russian developed under the Mongolian Empire.
Yeah, quite close to Bulgarian, obviously, but it's just a
Yeah,
lot of like as well as Asian influence there. For example, that we do not have. We have like quite a bit of like Turk words, for example, because of the
yeah,
influence
and
like
by
Ottomans had.
extension
It's
Polish
it's
as
a
well.
historical, yeah, historical things. But at the end of the day, like who the fuck no cares? They don't care. It doesn't matter. Like if our
Yeah,
language was like as close to as for example like Swedish and Norwegian are, which are quite close. They're like a little bit of a difference between them, but they're very similar, right? Who cares if we didn't have like a 40% linguistic difference? Like it doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. Okay.
yeah.
No.
And
Yeah. So it's just yeah.
their response to me saying that Russia developed under the Mongolian Empire was to mockingly ask me, "Oh, so Russians basically just Mongolian?"
No, but
I was like,
facts
"Wait,
are
what?"
facts. Yes. Yeah. I mean that's Russian. That's they just gulped like the buckets of cum of Russian propaganda. There's no other like. I think that guy actually Lactoid. He maybe stands in front of the mirror, and he repeats Russian propaganda points and tries to pull an Eminem basically like do bars of Russian propaganda to throw them as fast as he can possibly. So do a rap basically of Russian propaganda,
Yeah.
and then throw like all those points at the opponent, and the opponent is just like, oh my fucking god, how am I supposed to address all of that? And like, and then he gets annoyed when people like interrupt him, because obviously you
Yeah.
cannot address all of that. He like just sits there and he says in one sitting, in 1 minute, Bro can say like, I don't know, like 10 propaganda points laid out, right? And you just can't address all of that, especially
Yeah.
in not a native language of yours, obviously.
People
So
were
yeah,
But
it's just
speaking of
pretty bad.
language, I have here a list of Polish words of Ukrainian origin.
Mm,
You're curious which Polish words were borrowed from Ukrainian?
that was actually kind of cool to know. Do tell.
Steppe.
Oh, step.
Yeah, like the
Really?
open field.
I,
Yeah.
yeah, I know what step. Half the
Yeah.
country is step,
That's
but I
definitely
was just,
steppe. Yeah. That's a
yeah, yeah,
word that Polish took from Ukrainian. Chata.
that's cool. Oh, the good old hata. Seriously, I thought it
Yeah.
was like a universal thing, but yeah, it is Ukrainian. It's a house, basically, like your home.
Yeah.
Um,
Or like how you can use it as a shack as well,
yeah,
I think. Czereśnia.
the white or chereshnya is a cherry.
It's
For
like,
the people.
yeah,
Yeah.
a type of fruit.
Hmm.
Niesamowite. That actually surprises me that niesamowite is a borrowed word from
Oh,
Ukrainian.
sounds like
Incredible.
it could be a Polish thing as well. Actually, like I
Yeah.
think, yeah, by the sound of it, but didn't know that.
Chomik.
What? Can you say it again?
Chomik. Yeah, like
Homik?
chomiak.
Ah, hamyak.
Yeah,
Hamyak.
chomiak.
Yes.
Yeah, chomik.
Yeah.
It became chomik in Polish. Little animal.
Hamyak.
Little critter.
I thought you said a bad word there, because if you say homik, it's like a F slur for gay people.
Oh, it's
So
okay. It's like just a little animal. I mean, it's okay.
that's not what you meant. I hope.
It's okay to be an F
It's a
slur,
rodent.
I think.
I mean, I don't really, use that much or at all. Not a stan of homophobic stuff.
Uh,
Mhm.
Krynica.
Oh, krynica. Cool.
Yeah.
It's a like a how it's called in English. Do you know?
Oh,
The
I
well,
always think of it as this place where you drink
the
cooling
well, right?
waters.
Yeah.
Krynica
It's,
Górska, the mountain.
yeah. I'm not sure like what's the analog in English actually is, but yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Hałas.
What? Can
Yeah.
you say it again? Can
Hałas.
you say it again?
Like halas,
Uh,
the loud noise.
Oh, halas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just said
Yeah.
hałas
Yeah.
in
Uh-huh.
Polish. You just replace the actor's L with the eł, the Polish
That's
eł.
pretty cool.
Oh,
I find this
hulać,
cute.
hultaj,
Oh, what the fuck? It's similar to something, but I wonder.
hultaj,
I don't.
hu, hul, hulti. Like like the how do I say it? It's like delinquent. Hultaj.
Nah.
Yeah, hulti in Ukrainian.
Damn. A lot of
Ochida.
stuff. Oh, hidden.
Yeah, something disgusting.
Yeah, hidden. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
disgusting.
hodować to sort of um, take care of and to grow something.
Uh huh. Yeah.
Hodowaty in Ukrainian.
Hodowate.
Yeah,
Feeding, like
hodować.
feeding stuff.
Yeah, like to sort
Uh-huh.
of like to nurture.
Yeah, nurture. Yeah, if you feed a baby that way, basically, say hodowate dитino, a child.
Yeah, and they're buława, korowaj.
Guava,
Yeah.
karawai. Uh huh. Russians also has karawai, by the way.
Oh, I'm pretty
Some
borsuk is also like borrowed
barsuk,
from.
like an animal.
Yeah,
Oh damn!
and of
You have
course
your own word for that guy. That's kind of funny. Uh,
it's actually pretty interesting because when you Like when you use the word for hero in Ukrainian, when I hear it, usually it's like heroyam or something like that.
Heroi, yeah, heroi is one.
Heroi.
Heroim
Yeah.
is to the heroes, basically.
But
Heroim
the
slava, you
word
say,
for the
right?
Polish word for hero is bohater.
Bahatir. Oh, it's a very strong, like noble person would also to have that, like from
Yeah.
the good
Yeah,
old
but that
times,
came
like of
from
the given.
Ukrainian actually
Yeah,
into
Bahatir is
Polish.
like a as like a very
Yeah.
strong warrior, noble warrior,
Yeah,
basically, right?
bohater. Yeah.
Hmm.
So the Polish hero bohater came from the Ukrainian word, even though
Yeah, we
Ukrainian
had like
doesn't really
stories
use
from.
it for that
Uh,
right now.
it's an old word that you use for like describing like given Rus and later on like heroes basically that would save like the damsel in
Yeah.
distress or some shit, fight of a mythical creature of some sort. That's what basically it is. It's like a
Oh,
heroic
and a lot,
figure. Like,
a bunch of those words came from Turkish that then went to Ukrainian via Turkish and then went to
hmm.
Polish.
Yeah, so got a funny thing. My dad, he actually spoke Turkish, basically because of the Turkification, quote unquote, of Greek people.
Yeah.
So he kind of lost Greek language, his family and his because they were like Turkified, and then they escaped towards Georgia or and then became like part of Soviet Union because Georgia became part of the Soviet
Yeah.
Union and all of that, like a long basically history of that shit. But he knew Turkish, and he a lot of words he would explain, like have like a Turkish, Turkish like heritage or Turkish coming from Turks, the Ottoman Empire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the word tuman.
Mm. A
Yeah.
lot of words like it doesn't come like to mind right this second, but if you like actually like listen to a lot of words have, we also have like a lot of clothing items as well, or like for example like Cossacks used to have like quite a lot of like adopted a lot of like Turkish military stuff and things like that into their like arsenal and their like appearance and all of that. There are a lot of like interesting
Yeah.
stuff, even the trousers and all of that as well.
The word Cossack
Um,
comes from Turkish.
Oh, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, or the weaponry, like the usage of scimitars, for example, is
Or
something that was
Vataha.
Vataha.
Yeah. Like a
Uh-huh.
band, a group.
Yeah, yeah,
And the
yeah.
swords were taken into the whole
Vatajov
Polish
is a
Lithuanian
leader
Commonwealth sort of adopted like
as
Turkish
well.
weaponry, like the
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's kind of
curved
cool,
sword.
actually. I mean, I wish people would like talk more about that part of history because it's kind of cool, like the relationship between, because for example, in the time right when Cossacks were kind of like fighting a bunch of like people from all sides, like they
Yeah,
had like skirmishes with like the Polish and the Rush and Muscovites and like the Turkish Ottoman people and a lot of like adopted warfare tactics as well. They adopted
yeah.
from like the Ottomans and the weaponry I think is quite cool. I
Oh,
had like been in a museum, saw like a bunch of very cool like scimitars that they used at the time. I just think
uh,
it's quite pretty, like beautiful weapon in my
the
opinion.
Cossacks just kicked a lot of Ottoman ass.
It's true, yeah.
Yeah,
That's historically accurate, but I do love to read that letter though sometimes to the
yeah,
Sultan.
yeah.
It just gives me
And
the kicks.
it's like the Western Europe just look at the entirety of the Commonwealth and well, like those are just Asiatic people, and
Mm,
the Polish people obviously have like a Tatar. They're basically Tatars, and they have weird
mm.
hairdos, and they're just Asiatic people.
Weird are those. I mean, it's just a funny thing if you think about it. Like the Western you get, the more those are Asians, you know.
Yeah,
Everyone has their line to call these are Asians, okay? We are now
yeah.
part of European Union. I heard some Polish people do that. It's very funny for me because you recently have been looked upon just exactly the same,
Yeah,
like Asia,
still
Asian.
are in some places.
Yeah, yeah. And now they're like became part of European Union, and not all Polish people, obviously, but some have those opinions, right? And they would be like, and you're like, bro, you like recently have been like accepted in the realm of the Europeans. Okay,
Yeah,
you have been Asian 5 minutes ago. Okay,
there
don't get too cocky.
there have been similar
Yeah.
descriptions of Hungarians too based on clothing. Well, let's not get too
Mm,
excited because apparently there's a whole two-tier system on the horizon in the European Union itself. So
mm.
with Eastern
Well, the
Europeans being tier two and Western Europeans being tier one. So
I mean, it is the fact, though. It's true. It has been that way like forever. It's not like something new. Like we can say it out loud and it sounds mean, but it's just how the
yeah,
politics work, how relations worked, right? So it's not like something new. We all know it, honestly. So it's not like,
yeah. Polish people, as
uh,
I just someone said in the chat, Polish people are still dismissed in many Western European countries.
yes, despite the fact that it's quite a significant, contributor, for example, to NATO, to significant
Yeah,
contributor
a
to
two
the
tier
a lot of
system
the.
is a bit different, though. I assume that it's less about
Mhm.
just discrimination, but more about
Yeah, but
the more about
I mean,
economy.
Perhaps, but like I said, it's just obviously you cannot argue that, for example, like France, Germany,
Oh,
Italy,
citizens
all those countries,
restrictions. Yeah, citizens restrictions. That's the tier two
yeah,
technically
more of
system.
a have a bigger economy, have bigger GDP and things like that. Obviously, than for example Eastern European countries and all of that. So,
Yeah,
but it's just I just don't think that's a barometer of whether you should afford people humanity.
yeah,
I don't know. It's just me, but I think how rich you are isn't exactly
or
the
big,
what we.
powerful, etc. Yeah,
Yeah. It's just pretty
it's.
cringe in my
I still
opinion.
find
But
it
what do I
very
know?
embarrassing that Poland gave more tanks to Ukraine than any other ally.
Mm, well,
Like, I don't find it as some point of, oh God, Poland is the best. No, I find it as a point to say this is pathetic. Okay, that should
y-
not be happening.
yeah, that's yeah.
It
I
should,
mean, I do bring up like Estonia, for example, are a lot because of the how big of a percentage of their GDP they donated is quite,
yeah,
significant. I think bigger than anyone else in comparison. But also, it's kind of like as much as I like stan Estonia, like I had like the best interactions with with Estonian people and all of that in terms of like their Russophobia is very very high up. Okay, it's very good. But point is that it just should be like that for like everyone in my opinion, and it's also should be like a not a like a unique thing like wow they like donate and
yeah.
imagine if the countries that actually had a lot of GDP, a lot of like economical power
Like
and
Germany,
all of that.
for example, if we
Yeah,
expand a little
Germany,
bit
yeah,
more.
in that list is like there basically like it's like below
Yeah,
like the 2% even threshold, I think like somewhere
yeah,
around
yeah,
one
yeah,
or
yeah,
something.
yeah.
Mhm.
If even below one
Yes.
in some cases, the United States
Yeah,
being a notable
yeah,
example.
0.8 or something. I saw like something like that. It's just, I mean, it was under Schultz though, and understandably, like because we don't call him limp dick Schultz for nothing, okay? So this is just, yeah, maybe Merz would be different. Who knows?
Yeah, and
I mean,
I don't.
yeah.
It is not a wow. But the language thing as well. It's. I remember in that talk I basically said because many people don't realize this because Poland is treated as this country that sort of just came out okay. It was all cool. It was all great. There's a
Mm,
really good book. It's about a different subject. It's about Poland not Polish people not having in the 19th century. Basically, there was no Poland to speak of, so having a state was considered a utopian project. Basically,
mm,
almost on the same level as creating a communist system. So there was a discussion: should we have a state or should we just skip the state and skip to something else entirely right off the bat? And the
mm,
author says that people don't really realize it, but the Polish language was quite near, like the Polish people as a nation were quite close to being not a thing at that time,
mm,
because the educated people and the old people that came from the nobles, they did speak Polish, but a lot of peasants sort of didn't. You know,
mm-hmm.
they were very much Russified, and that it
Yeah,
was quite close actually.
I mean, if you speak of it in the terms of like the Russification in terms of like who was under it in the most significant way, I would say obviously like the difference between Poland and, for example, Belarus and Ukraine is quite
Yeah,
big. In
yeah,
yeah, but
yeah,
it
yeah,
also
yeah.
kind of depends on things. For example, because if you haven't been as long. in Soviet Union as the Ukraine was, obviously, because
Yeah.
after the Red Revolution and all of that, the Ukraine pretty much became occupied, right, by the Soviet Russia and all of that, which only Poland suffered later on after World War II, in the middle of it and in the
Yeah. Yeah.
in the end of it. So afterwards, yes, but it's not really at the time. It was also not, I think, on the main like menu basically for the
Yeah.
Soviet regime after World War II to be so invested in like hardcore Russification.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, in
And yeah, it was a
Poland, and like for Polish people, it mainly happened under
Mhm.
the empire.
Yeah, like the previous version, yeah,
Yeah.
let's
Yeah.
say,
Yeah.
yeah, of Russian Empire. So in that sense, yes, but also Ukraine have been, quite dealing with the Russification way before Soviet Union as well. So it was like a continuation of the
Yeah.
policy in a way. For example, like things like that. But mostly it's like 19th century has been quite strong on like Ems Kukaz and Volov
Yeah.
Circulare laws like that prohibited Ukrainian
But
language.
it's still
Yeah.
quite like surreal when you get taught from a very young age about Russification and Germanification for that matter,
Mm.
and then someone comes in. Yeah, once it takes root, you should just basically not do anything about it because it's tantamount to genocide. Like,
That's literally doesn't make any fucking sense. I don't even
dude,
know how to. Yeah, it's like a reverse genocide or some shit.
yeah,
Like
Uno
reverse
card.
racism. Yeah, it's just just like come on, like it's just how like just
Y-
some countries, unfortunately, and nations didn't restore their their native languages and things like that, obviously. But any attempts to restore it, first of all, is for the people to decide, like for the
Yeah,
people that live there. Yeah, not you. And second of all, it's never by any circumstances, unless you start like I don't know shooting fucking Russian speakers in the head. Then yeah, then you could say it's a genocide,
yeah,
I guess. But yeah, but if you don't like actually do any sort of like aggressive prosecution and you're just softly increasing the quotas of Ukrainian
yeah.
language,
Actually,
we had
like
like this.
the
Yeah,
people
it's just
in
pretty.
the people in the voice chat uh, talked about the Nazi tier laws, how
Uh huh.
how teachers get punished for speaking Russian at school. I don't even know if they said if it was in the context of teaching of just chatting in the school building. And I asked,
Mm-mm-mm.
okay, so what if the teacher
Yeah.
speaks Surzhyk? What happens then? Do they get arrested and executed?
If you
Like,
say two words in Ukrainian and three words in Russian, you get arrested. Okay,
yeah,
it
or what
has
if
been
it's just
dropped
a
here.
word that's a combination? Like,
Yeah,
like
which
yeah,
by the way, a lot of people speak. Like the combination of the two. Yeah.
yeah, which is
Um.
interesting because it sounds
Mhm.
like the Polish word, the combination of Russian and Ukrainian. Yeah,
I mean, it depends on the part of the country, though. I'd say, like, in some parts, Surzhyk is like a mixture, basically, of both, right? And in some parts, it's more common than the other, definitely. Yeah. Um,
yeah,
I'd say mostly in a lot of Surzhyk, like in the middle part, because of the basically like the way Ukrainian and Russian kind of like parts collide. Basically, you would have a lot of like in Poltava, for example, you would have
mm,
mostly Surzhyk. Because a lot of like Russian speakers on the right, so to speak, and a lot of Ukrainian speakers on the left to them.
yeah.
So you have like this blend essentially
Oh, someone
of
said in the
both.
chat, I have had issues with the language law, but there's no such persecution as Lactoid's chat described.
You can take issue with it, which by the way you can make arguments about it, and we did at the time. Like there was a lot of like arguing in Ukraine about whether it's necessary, should we do it. Like now most people I think would agree that yes, that was a good call, but back in the day like there was a lot of like discourse about it, but it's
Yeah,
not in any way shape or form a prosecution, especially if you then look into the actual like points of the laws and you'd be like, well, on the radio, you have to have like at least 50% of Ukrainian. And you're like, damn, dog, that's some Nazi tier laws right there.
yeah,
50% of the national language should be on the radio. Wow. Truly, the most prosecuted prosecution in the history of
yeah.
mankind.
And I remember asking
Mm.
because, again, Lukashenko basically, when Russian was still a fairly small percentage in Belarus, as a people actually take people get angry that I pronounce it like this, Belarus. with the ash at the end.
Mm, we say Belarus.
Yeah, we say
So basically not sure at the end, but
actually we
yeah.
say like Białoruś.
Mm, yeah,
Yeah,
Belarus
yeah,
basically. It's like
Białoruś.
not yeah, but e in Ukrainian. Belarus
Yeah,
basically like this. Yeah.
or they get angry at the
Mhm.
sound that I do at the end, and
I wasn't okay. Who
usually
are
it's usually
Belarusians
English
or
speakers. It's usually English
oh the
speakers
English
that
speakers?
get angry at me and say
Not them
Belarus,
anyway.
Belarus,
Yeah. Who cares what they
and
think? Honestly.
it's like I ask, okay, so because Lukashenko made Russian like an equal language with Belarusian, like when it was still a small percentage
Mm.
in the country, right? Why did he do it? Why did he just make it like a second official language? And they started saying, yeah, well, there were probably a lot of speakers, right? Well, no, there weren't. At that time, there was like what 10%
About
or
yeah.
something like that. And then I moved on to okay, there are about there was definitely a time when there were give or take 10% Ukrainian people living in Poland. So should Poland just make Ukrainian a second official language of Poland in that case?
Mm. Yeah, it's
And
just
they're like,
like I
you know,
listen. I understand you're trying to win with facts and logics over feels. I appreciate that. It's but at the end of the day, it's about the feels. So they are the magas, the conservatives, whatever. They are all about the feels. So it's just that they have the feeling, okay, that we should be
yeah.
under Russia and we should be cool with that, and that's it pretty much. They think Russian language is superior, Russian
And by the
culture
way,
is superior, Russia is superior.
that conversation went into absurd like that went absurd as well because I asked, okay, let's say that the person who's the Polish president on prime or prime minister says, well, actually, the Polish language is a poor language and nothing of value can be expressed in it, and we should all just skip to Ukrainian now, and let's say that the proportions would just shift from Polish to Ukrainian, like in Belarus. Is that okay? Well, yeah, okay, I
Uh,
guess so.
them dog.
I was like,
Uh, the
oh,
the most the most hilarious thing about this, quite honestly, is that the fact that it's Americans speaking about that. Why are they talking about this? Like, it's just that it's nothing to do with literally any of them. Like, it's a European business about European shit. Like, you don't know like much of anything about that, and you shouldn't probably. Like, that's really not your like kind of like problem that people face in the United States. But yeah, it's just ask them. By the way, I wonder if what they would say. Like there's a lot of Spanish speakers in United States, quite a significant percentage. Like why isn't then we have now English as national language? Like why don't we have Spanish as well? Like
yeah,
what's up?
true.
Yeah, it's just stupid shit, just stupid shit. There are some countries obviously that have multiple national languages and they have
Yeah,
their reasons for that.
yeah, like
There's nothing like
Switzerland would be among them, right?
yeah, there's nothing in particular wrong about that. Like, it's just a point of like culture or history, how it works, right? But in our case, obviously, Ukrainian has been a national language literally like since 91, since we gained full on independence. And it just hasn't changed. And what it did need, though, is a bit of a revival because of the, centuries of prosecution of the Ukrainian language,
Yeah,
whether it was hardcore as it was in Russian Empire, like straight up prohibition, right? Or it was a bit more of a soft core, I'd say, version of discrimination that was, for example, Soviet Union. Not that it wasn't particularly as bad, but it just was a different method of basically Russifying things, right? Although they applied both, they did the soft core some things like, for example, you would be discriminated against socially, like pressured, or like you don't get a decent job or things like
yeah,
that, right? But they also applied hardcore Russification, for example, during the Holodomor, right? Because
yeah.
after
Well, during that
yeah,
you just had straight up executions of any
i-
writers,
yeah,
thinkers,
yeah.
and
Not only the, I'm not even just talking about the executed Renaissance. I'm talking in particular about the if you depopulate, right, the Ukrainian,
Yeah,
you will then replace them with Russian settlers, like to make it kind of like the Russian ethnic Russians are there, bigger of a population number, but you also then prohibit, for example, Ukrainian language in schools and turn it into Russian programs, and then you by that method you would just Russify them like physically,
yeah,
essentially, which they did, by the way, in quite the most or like obvious case of that I would say was Kuban, which was part of Russia, but it was mostly inhabited by Ukrainians. Like 70% of the people and also the language, mostly people spoke Ukrainian there before Holodomor, but after the complete shift of
yeah,
the linguistics and all of that. So
yeah.
yeah, so restoring all of that, in my opinion, as a Ukrainian, if anyone cares, by my opinion, is good. So, despite me being obviously a Russian speaker, and I proceeded after 2014 to speak in Russian, I didn't make any moves to shift to Ukrainian. I knew it, but I didn't really made moves to speak Ukrainian.
Right,
And yeah, so I always supported though the attempts to support Ukrainian language, to amplify it, and also to make it less of a shame, let's say, for people to speak Ukrainian, because that was an issue people suffered in the East quite a bit, of being shamed about it or ashamed themselves about it, right? Because there was it was a language of the rural, of the stupid, of the inferior culture comparatively to Russian language and Russian culture, and there was a lot of very nasty fucking feelings about that in people's daily lives, and
yeah. I
I
still
obviously
remember
am.
there's this,
Yeah.
I guess, friend of the family. I don't remember if I asked her that before 2014 or after. I asked her, "Hey, you could teach me Ukrainian, I guess, right? You could teach me the language," and she was like, "Eh, why Ukrainian? Could just learn Russian."
Yeah, I mean that's like a soft sort of attitude. It's not that as bad as it had been in some places, but it's just yeah, just the shift is quite good and quite pretty massive. I'd say it was actually very soft policy, despite the fucking what the
Yeah,
fucking Russian
well,
propaganda tells you. It's yeah,
I remember because I
it's much more
remember you said, I don't remember if it was in an interview with Dylan Burns. You learned about
perhaps.
the Holodomor uh,
Yeah,
fairly
quite late.
late in
Yeah.
life, and
Yeah.
I
I mean,
remember,
I
yeah,
kind of heard about it, obviously, but it wasn't really learned in any sort of detail
yeah,
until so in my school it was like my school was like very pro-Russian, very with a Russian spin basically on everything, right? And a lot of things were essentially brought up with this like spin to make a Russian narrative instead of like real things that happened. So it would be like, well, it was like a famine, a mistake, a miscalculation on Stalin part. That's it. Move on. So, you
right,
know, that's kind of like that's what I meant. I heard about it, but I didn't really know what it was and how it really occurred and how it really transpired. And later on, I only learned
right.
about it in detail, basically.
Like, because I remember the person that I just mentioned, and I don't remember if it was before 2014 exactly or after, when she sort of, I don't even remember how it went to that topic, that she said, yes, the horrors of the Great Hunger uh, for the older generation is like ingrained into like our memory, and we like I still sort of remember like the horror of the Great Hunger
Yeah,
is just
that
sort of
with the older people.
imprinted into us.
Yeah, with older people, definitely you could see it. It was just that you didn't really understand it, like as a teenager, to be honest,
Yeah,
like because you're a kid, basically. But there would be a lot of things you would hang out with people's grandmas and grandmas and quite older people, right? And they would be like throwing like basically having like a mini panic attack if you don't eat everything on your plate.
right.
And I really like remember that quite a
Like
lot.
that
Like
person I
people would be,
mentioned is now closer to
Mhm.
50. God, I want to say
Now what?
50.
Oh, 50.
Yeah,
Yeah, but it's just I remember like, and even me like as a small kid, right? I would be
Yeah.
like hanging out in people's homes, and they would be like their grandmothers, like all the older people, like in their
Yeah.
90s, in their 80s, in their like 70s, and they would really like be very anxious about the not eating the things from the plate, and you'd be like, well, I don't want to, like, a
Yeah,
kid
yeah,
basically, like,
yeah.
yeah, I'm full,
Not
like I don't want to, right?
wasting
And they were like,
food.
no, eat everything on the fucking plate. They would be like throwing like it seemed like unreasonable reaction to
Yeah.
like to a child,
But
obviously, because I
it's
didn't grow
yeah.
up in destitution. I didn't grow up in hunger. I didn't grow up
Yeah.
in any of that. So I wasn't really, I didn't understand that. Now of course I understand where they were coming from. Also, they were very angry when you will throw shit up shit away. Like, if, for example, if something isn't really that fresh, and you'd be like, better throw it like away. Nobody like
Yeah.
wants that. And they will be like, no, they will like grab it from your hand and actually not let you throw shit away. And
Yeah, yeah.
that was also like something they remembered, because they wanted to preserve as much things as possible in case of a hunger, so you can like have something basically.
Yeah. I remember like people would also that happened even in Poland, but I guess that's because during the um people would there would be regular blackouts during the Soviet bloc era in Poland because there was not
Mm-hmm.
enough electricity. So there were electricity schedules, and I
Yep.
think there were also water schedules or something. Like there was
Yeah, we
no
had
water
those
in.
even in 90s. So I know we have them because of Russian bombings. So
Yeah,
I really understand. Yeah,
but
there was also like a lot of stuff I didn't really understand. For example, cultural things, right? A lot of people have like a bunch of pickled shit everywhere. Like
yeast.
older people, like, you have like jars of like pickled like tomatoes and jams and like
Yeah,
cucumbers
in
and all of
Polish we
that.
call
It
them
is.
przetwory.
Yeah, I mean, it's like conserving stuff like that, right?
Yeah,
And just keeping it basically. And I always thought of it just as some sort of like quirk, basically, of the like the the older people. Also, I enjoyed eating that, so it's not like
yeah,
I
it's
was
pretty
in
good.
a yeah in any sort of a disadvantage because of that. But I just really like only later on understood that this like obsession with the pickling everything and having like a stash of that stuff in your like cupboard somewhere for winter also came from that destitution basically.
Yeah,
And not necessarily even from Holodomor, but even before that, people would just have like such a low access to food during winter times, right? And because it wasn't the only famine in our history, so it's just, yeah, just pretty
I am
interesting to
reading
think about
YouTube
that way.
chat. Yes.
Hey, I don't hear you.
Oh, now I have to mute for a second because I didn't want to interrupt you because YouTube chat was like, "Is Lucy reading YouTube chat today?" Yes, yes, I am glancing at it.
I'm gonna go either way quite soon, so it's you can hang out with the chat people as
Yeah.
much as you like. Um,
So yeah,
yep.
I just don't know what to make
Oh,
of the whole 30 days freeze of the conflict. I feel I'm pretty sure already there's been murmurs and whispers of the Russian side not agreeing to it because it would just
yes, seems
allow
so.
Ukraine to
Hmm.
rearm and
Or some
stuff.
shit.
Yeah,
Yeah. I don't know, like it's not official yet, so it's a speculation a little bit, but I
yeah,
do think that could go like both ways. I am more certain of that they will not agree to it, and because of the main demands are basically demilitarization of Ukrainian army, right? The no NATO, no security guarantees of any sort. Sometimes even includes no European Union, but not always. They also want to take all the territories and then being recognized that they currently occupy as well. So there's like a lot of things like that, and the demands are pretty, capitulation, basically, like a full-on surrender, right? So in that case, I don't really see them like agreeing to much else, honestly. So for Trump, it was really only made sense to try to push the weaker party, which is us, like the more vulnerable
Yeah,
party that he has more leverage towards because he doesn't really have any apparently towards Putin. He only
this
has
is weird.
leverage, yeah, for us because we depend on the United States in the terms of like intelligence, military equipment, aid, all of that, right?
There was actually an interesting argument made in the reverse, that the cutting of
Mm.
intel actually hurts the United States as well, because there's a lot of good intel that Ukraine gives.
In a
Um,
sense, yes. Hmm.
well, I'm not even talking about battlefield intel. I'm talking about Ukraine having people inside of Russia, and that Ukraine actually
Oh, I
provides
see.
pretty good intel on Russia to the United States,
Hmm.
and that sort of goes out the window if
Yeah, I mean, it seems to be like they want to restore the intel, at least from what I see now, which I think is a very good thing because we stood our ground basically, and we
yeah,
didn't
yeah.
allow them to just
I've seen a lot
bend.
of commentary in Polish circles that say that
Mm,
Ukraine basically gracefully outmaneuvered the US in this.
kinda, yeah. Hopefully it works exactly how we hope it will. But my best case scenario right now, obviously, would be to for the negotiations to fail with Russia, and because they would be unwilling to make any sort of like concessions on their end, and maybe Trump will throw a hissy fit of some sort about that because he does look a little bit stupid to say the least right now. And the backlash has been significant, in my opinion, towards their attitudes
No.
towards Ukraine from Europe allies mostly, but also within the United
Yeah.
States a little bit as well. So maybe that will actually kind of like play in our favor to show that, see, we want this like 30-day ceasefire, but they don't want it, right? So
Yeah.
who is the? I don't know why we need to prove who is aggressor
I
here because it should
mean,
be quite easy.
it
Who is one?
became suddenly like a contested thing. Who attacked
Yeah, out of
who,
nowhere.
and why did the war happen? That is actually like, yeah.
As
And
annoying as that is, that you have to even argue about the obvious shit, it also is unfortunate reality we live in, so we have to argue for it. And I think it's quite a good argument that they likely will denounce that. And probably there is a even it's like a chit chat so far. It's not like 100%, but there is a talk about maybe restoring military aid to us in case they don't comply with
yeah,
the 30 days. So that would be our win,
I
obviously.
do sort of
So.
appreciate that's been said here that Rubio, the dude, mentioned
Mm.
the kidnapped children in
Mhm.
the talks in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, I mean that has been our main one of our main stickler like issues basically. So
Yeah.
we Zelensky and everyone who participated in negotiations put that out as one of our main demands, so to speak, to the return of the children, and so that would be obviously something. But I mean, it could play out the way I mean, it would be way too good. So I'm not like into
And with
into
some
very
children,
positive
it's
scenario.
almost physically impossible to return them, because
Yes, but still, yeah.
some children were kidnapped at such a young age that it's
Mm-hmm.
impossible to identify them. Like, they're
Yes.
basically almost infants, and at that age, they don't know their
Mm-hmm.
names because, you know,
Yeah, yeah, you can just rename them and like adopt them, and
and
that's
they
it pretty
look
much. Yeah.
just like little babies, so you cannot identify them by looks alone.
Mm-hmm.
And in
Yeah.
many cases, those are just lost.
Yeah. I mean, we shall see. Maybe
Although
actually, like,
apparently
because
AI, there's hope that AI could recognize them more accurately
perhaps
than, yeah,
I'm not like I said, I'm not particularly hopeful so far. I'm just seeing what's up. Like the cut of the aid of the Intel is pretty catastrophic, obviously. So if we can restore that, that would be a good thing.
yeah. And people don't
Yeah.
really realize that not just the conflict has been going on since 2014, but also the kidnapping of the children has been going on since 2014.
Yeah, yeah, it was just from the smaller area from Donbass, for
Yeah,
example, and yeah, but now it's just a more of a all occupied parts in Zaporizhia, in Kherson region, and
yeah.
Nikolaev region,
There was
Kharkiv.
this, for example, very blatant case of children going on vacation in a bus to some other area of Ukraine, and the bus being stopped by the separatists, and diverted to Russia.
Yeah. That happened quite a bit. Yeah, but not on such a scale as it is now,
Yeah,
obviously, because
yeah.
of the.
That now it became well full scale
Mm-hmm.
kidnapping, just like the full scale invasion. Yeah.
Pretty much, yeah. So I don't know. We shall see how it all plays out tomorrow and the day after. They will have talks with Russia, I believe, and they will perhaps we will see how it goes
I don't know. So
with whether the
like we'll see how it will go now. But so far, like I've adopted the very well, let's say just say cynical attitude of the United States' main goal is to normalize relations with Russia. Secondary
100%,
goal
yeah.
is to exploit as much resources from Ukraine as possible. And the
Pretty much,
third
yeah.
distant goal is peace, not necessarily just in any way.
Yes, true. I don't disagree with literally anything you just said. That's the order of things. The infamous перегрузка, fuck that shit, like reset with Russia basically is what's something that so many like politicians in the West have been trying to constantly return to for some fucking reason.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's the goal. Also, the lifting of sanctions would be extremely problematic for us, but thankfully, it seems like maybe that will not happen. I don't know. I'm not sure. The
Mm,
backlash did save us, save our ass.
yeah.
I truly believe that
There that
because otherwise,
the talks started about lifting the sanctions
yeah, so
for
I do think that the just the level of absolute like shitstorm that that Oval Office meeting like solicited towards this administration. Fuck that administration,
yeah.
obviously sideways. But at the same time, you can really see how I don't think they were like really prepared as well because there was like this air of nobody gives a fuck about Ukraine anymore attitude that you probably like saw ever since like Israel Palestine conflict took everyone to take attention for it's kind of like moved from that towards that and didn't return really like the attention towards Ukraine didn't really seem to return after that. So in that sense, I would say that it's good that at least now everyone is talking again about Ukraine. Unfortunately, that it's because of this shit fest, but
Yeah.
people really like came through. They went to the streets to protest. I saw like a bunch of protests in like Chicago, New York, and like other
Yeah.
cities in the United States as
And
well. A
apparently
bit of
near DC, I'm gonna have to
hmm
read the thing someone sent me.
So like stuff
Mm,
like that, I would say it obviously like
like
plays a role
on a
because I
highway near DC, someone just hanged a Ukrainian flag on every
based
underpass or
don't know who did
overpass.
this, but you're based. Yeah. Anyhow, point is that I'd say that attention, as annoying as it sometimes gets to that everyone is talking shit about your smack about your country, it's also is quite important because I would say that attention is much better than none. So being in like people's faces now is better than nothing, because silence kills,
Yeah.
literally, right? And I would say that's that there's something positive can be brought out of that. For example, like Europe being like scared shitless that,
Yeah.
that America is bananas and doing
I've
some
been
things about that.
like
Yeah.
someone said that in the chat, but I've been feeling like that from the like day one of the invasion. Like that our historical experience is that of being thrown under the bus by the West
Yes.
most of the
Yes.
time.
Oh, yes. I
And
literally had a conversation about this just recently, and exactly about this topic about the historical similarities between the 1938 Munich, zrada, as Czechs call it,
yeah,
right? The betrayal of the that France and the British
Zrada,
did
yeah.
towards them. Yeah, the Sudetenland situation, all of that, and how they have been promised "quote unquote" assurances, right, of the of their safety that they will not be the full scale
Yeah.
invaded and the whole country would not be occupied, and how it then in fact afflicted the Poland as well because they used Czechoslovakia as a platform to basically attack Poland and use the armaments that Czechs were making, which were one of the best
Yeah.
in the world at
In
the
the
time.
yes,
To
yeah.
yeah,
Skoda.
all of that.
Skoda
hmm
factories. But
yeah, unfortunately, that has been like incredibly good for the fucking Nazis at the time,
yeah.
and it's also kind of similar to the things that are happening now in many ways. Only we are like fighting back essentially. So as Snyder sometimes says, Timothy Snyder said that we are prolonging the 1938
Yeah.
because we are like putting a
And
fight
I
basically.
remember when the invasion happened, when the first couple of days, Polish, I remember Polish people panicked and started emptying their bank accounts.
Mhm.
Uh, I thought I didn't really panic. I thought it would be. I didn't actually subscribe to uh, the belief that Ukraine would fall within the
Mhm.
few days, so I didn't actually quite as much panic. But I remember talking with someone, and I said, if Poland got attacked, I'm not so super confident if the NATO status would actually help us.
And that's you back in the day, and now people are even more like anxious about the whether NATO Article 5 would be activated if Poland, for example, gets attacked, or Baltics, right? Like
Yeah,
Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia.
like that.
So
Like already in
I think that attitude
2022.
grew.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I remember my attitude being like Poland has been basically thrown under the bus before, and I can see
Yes,
Western countries saying, "Okay, this country has been in the sphere of influence before. Why would we risk global peace and stability for
exactly.
Poland?"
Like, I mean, I know you not Destiny's biggest fan, obviously, but he made this argument pretty well because the exact same arguments about nuclear shit applies to Poland, applies to Baltics, right? Because
Yeah,
of the, for example, because you can make the exact same word for word argument. You could say like, well, Poland. I mean,
yeah,
is it really worth to start like World War Three and to have a war with the Russia nuclear power, right? Or the war between multiple nuclear powers because of that. Like exact same argument apply. So it's
yeah,
not like Ukraine and that said. You can't say that, for example, Ukraine is not in the NATO. That argument you can make, or you can say it's not in the European Union compared to Poland, right?
yeah,
But you can't really make an argument about which most people actually return to about the nuclear interaction with the country that has nuclear weapons, and that applies to Poland, and that applies to
yeah.
Baltics
And
and to
and it's
Finland.
a fact that recently the Polish Prime Minister basically said if there's anything we are learning from Ukraine is that it would be good if we had nuclear weapons.
Mm. I mean, we shall see. I don't know. Maybe it also actually plays out the way that now Europe is spooked and they will help us more, but also maybe Trump will retract and, throw a hissy fit about Putin not doing what he wants. I don't
Maybe.
know. Or maybe he will actually do everything Putin wants. Who fucking knows at
He's
this
very
point? Uh,
opportunistic. He basically does the
yeah.
thing. I had some relatives that did this sort of maneuver. They would say something
Mm.
really horrible, and then they would sort of pretend either that they didn't say it or that they said it in a
Mm-hmm.
far milder form than initially. And the White House, you don't have any cards. Uh, you are
The
dependent
cards.
on us. And then in this interview that he had in a plane, he was like, when I said Ukraine does not have any cards, I Russia doesn't have cards either. No one has any
I
cards.
saw this. Just the fuck me. It's just such a state of affairs. Let's put it like
Yeah,
that.
it's
It's
just
just
it's just opportunism.
I,
Like when it's convenient,
yeah.
he's gonna just say the worst crap about Ukraine to the president's face, and then he'll be like, "I don't remember saying that. It wasn't as bad
YOLO.
as you saying. Ah,
Yeah.
come
I like
on."
how he said about the dictator thing like on multiple times. Also posted about it publicly like on Twitter and shit. And his Elon lapdog obviously did that as well.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
and,
yeah,
and all of that. And then he's like, "Did I say that?" Like
yeah.
the dictator thing, and I'm like, are you senile? Like, are you actually senile? Yeah, it was just I don't know. I made a very angry joke that Americans replaced a senile president with a fascist senile president, so I
Yeah.
wouldn't say it's a
And
big of an
also,
improvement
he
in my
was
opinion.
asked, "Would you call Putin a dictator?" And he responded with, "I don't use that word lightly. I don't wanna label him as anything."
Wait a second, a drone. Not that close though, I don't think.
Hmm.
Hmm. One person was injured by that drone that
Mm.
exploded when I was in the corridor. Uh, well, yeah. So I'm not sure like where we stand, but peace through strength is definitely not what I thought is anything close
Yeah.
to what we're
But
seeing
then
right
again,
now. So
because there are a lot of Trumpism that I assumed were a thing because he was old, right? Like
Yeah.
he often repeats himself in a weird way when he says the same word a bunch of times in the same sentence. But
Can we not talk about this? It annoys the fuck out of me. I'm just feeling like an insane person because I'm like, do am I the only one who hears that he says the exact same phrase like 10 times in one like
yeah,
speech and then 10 times in another speech
and I
the
was
next
like,
day?
that's because he's old, right? That's because he's like starting to slip away or something. But no, I went back to his interviews from the 80s when he was like 30 or
Mm-hmm.
34, and he was the exact same. Like
So
he
what you're saying is he was always R-worded, right?
yeah,
Is what you're
he
saying.
was he
Yeah.
like he said
Yeah.
there's a topic that ultimately is of ultimate importance to me. I was like, so he always spoke like that. He was always like this. It's like
Yeah, it is funny in a way. If it didn't affect everyone's lives, it would be funny, honestly. If
yeah.
it was
And
if it wasn't
his
like that.
rhetoric was also identical 44 years ago when
Yeah,
he
brother knows
was
how, like 5 words, which I can, I can stand that. I can, can
he was talking
appreciate
about making America
brevity.
great again 44 years ago, how America is in
Oh my god,
decline, how
that's a
nobody
dedicated
respects it.
brother.
Yeah,
Yeah, that.
how we're defending Japan. Why would we defend Japan and they're not
Oh,
paying
the exact
us?
same shit. I just saw that a couple days ago. He was
Yeah, and he
saying
was
that. Right?
saying that 44 years ago.
Oh my god, he's
Yeah.
consistent.
The
A
only
consistent
thing
king.
the only thing he's not consistent on is that he said that he wants to save and protect the homeless in the 80s, and now he's
Oh
clearing homeless encampments and
well,
saying that they have no right to just be there on the street and take drugs.
he just didn't mean it back then. Okay, she just wasn't a believer, but he was a believer in making America great again.
Yeah,
Obviously, right?
yeah. And
Yeah.
also there's the whole Krasnov thing.
Yeah, I heard about it, but it seems to be like more of a, more of a meme, if anything. Like, I'm not
Yeah.
saying he doesn't have any like Russian connections, right? Or I think most of the people like right now in the administration do have some sort of connection in terms of either like their money, their oligarchs, their friends that sponsor their
Oh
shit,
god,
buying their
have you heard about the
stupid
golden
ass
card?
coin.
Did you
Uh,
see the golden
y-
card
the-
thing?
what's that?
That it means
I
you
don't think so.
basically can. He replaced. There was a system in the U.S. where you had to start a company, and you'd receive a green card, which would be a permanent residency card.
Mm.
But
Hmm. Hmm.
there were conditions. You had to start a company, invest in that company, um, hire at least 10 people or something, like stuff like that. And
Hmm.
then Trump replaced it with a golden card system, which a Trump viewer told me in the chat once that it's basically just rebranding, that is the same thing. But no, the new
Uh
thing
huh.
is you pay $5 million and you get a permanent residency.
five
It's
million dollars.
completely different. Yes.
Oh.
And there was a video in which he was asked, okay, so if Russian oligarchs would just pay $5 million, would they get this card? Would they just get a permanent residency card? Yeah, of course. If they pay, of course. I know a lot of nice Russian oligarchs.
Oh, yes, yes. I saw the nice Russian oligarch thing. I just
Yeah,
didn't connect
it
that
was
it was
about the
the
golden
card thing.
card. If they pay them five
Oh, I
million
see.
dollars, they can get a permanent residency. They're very nice
My
people.
fucking god. Yeah. Anyhow, like, what's to talk about though? If Elon literally bought Twitter with his like Russian multimillionaire billionaire pal together, like, there's not much to
Yeesh.
say about that. Yeah, that was then, of course, the coincidence, purely coincidental, that then it turns into Russian bot farm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well,
Well,
it is what it is.
I exactly, yeah. We're
Shut up,
dealing with that.
small man.
Oh, fuck, that was so cringe.
Quiet,
Like, this
small
is like
man.
one of the things I really like fucking hate about Elon, amongst obvious things, is that he's so cringe.
Yeah, I
Like, he's just
know.
she's just so uncomfortable. Like, it's
I
just it just
know. It's like, did you
ew.
see the whole interview when he started waving a chainsaw around?
Yes,
He
it's
made
like
this.
yes.
I thought, God, you'd think that he at least just turn it
girl.
on, right? Just turn on the
Yeah.
chain. Like if you want to have noise, just turn it on. Don't make this
Yeah.
awkward.
Yeah, it's like just so fucking cringe. Like I didn't sign up for Nazis to be this cringe, okay?
Yeah,
Just give me the like less cringe ones, please. Like at least we can have something. Uh,
the innocent awkward little wave to the crowd.
oh, yeah, it's just autism. It's just autism.
Yeah, yeah, of
You know the
course.
the
He
rules.
he
Like I
he.
talked with my best friend who's like very severely autistic and has been like quite most of his life like that since childhood. And I
Yeah,
asked him, "Do you have the urge in you? Like, are you fighting the urge every time we chill out just to do a salute, like a Sieg Heil, right?" And he's like, "No, I never had the urge." And I was like, he must be lying. It must be like the inner autism,
true.
Yeah, yeah, it's just
Elon Musk just
fighting the that urge.
autistically stumbled into supporting the AFD, of course.
Yes, it's just all the autism, just
Yeah, he
yeah.
autistically just stumbled into saying that Germany should stop being feeling so bad about the Nazi past.
Yeah, I mean, a white race savior of the white race or whatever the fuck it was, like that AFD is the only hope of the white people, some shit. Like I don't really remember exactly the language, but yeah, it's just it's autism.
Oh yeah, as a cherry on top, I've also been called by a few people a Nazi sympathizer.
Oh, but of course, yeah, we
Yeah,
are the main Nazis. Everyone knows. We had like one of them in our parliament,
I'm a
unlike our
Nazi sympathizer because I made
the
the because I found it okay for Russification to be reversed. Yeah, you
obviously, yeah.
would, you Nazi sympathizer.
Yes, yeah, that's the Nazi thing. Yeah, famously, the most Nazi thing is the restoration of the language of the people who have been oppressed and
Yeah,
marginalized, and that's famously what Nazis do.
I
We know that.
remember
Like,
Nazi policy being a little bit different, especially in occupied Poland, taking a bunch of people off the street and just shooting them near a wall.
you'd think, but that also was kind of like the Soviet policy with the Polish
Yeah,
people. So
yeah,
it's
yeah,
not,
yeah. I
if
remember
you
my
think about
family
it.
in
Yeah.
1939 was fleeing Warsaw towards Lviv because they had relatives there. And then they
Mm.
saw that the Red Army was coming and they reversed and just came back to
Smart,
Warsaw. It's like, oh,
smart. I.
oops, whoops.
They're like, oh damn, these fuckers want to kill us too. Bad
Yeah,
times.
it just
Yeah,
reversed and came back to Warsaw.
yeah. Well, what can I say? Fun times over
Yeah,
here.
what can well, what can I say except you're welcome, okay? You're welcome. Have you ever said thank you? Have you
I
said
didn't say
even
not
once?
once.
Not
Have you
once?
ever see like all of the people? I don't know how much your guys follow like my stuff, but I am famously ungrateful. Like I never
I
thanked
know.
anyone.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
should be grateful.
once. Yeah.
Actually, that was very weird because during the Sikorsky thing, like it came back like a boomerang. You should be grateful. You should be appreciative because if it weren't for us, then Russia would be by Poland's doorstep. So
So
say
they do
thank
want
you.
to.
Say thank you.
I like how the admission was like basically they make fun of everyone who says that Russia has any further appetites besides Ukraine, but then they themselves like basically admit that Russia would be in Poland right now if
Yeah.
and you're like,
Say
what
thank
is
you.
it then? Which is it? Make it your decision, motherfucker. Well, on that note, I should probably go.
Yeah.
And
It was
yeah,
nice
it was
talking.
super lovely to catch up and chat a little bit with a person with some brain matter that functions.
Yeah, I try.
Because I have recently been speaking with people with with even less brain than RFK had after the war made half of it. So I really like
I
at this point I just luxuriate, okay, in a conversation with people who actually understand things. So I appreciate
yeah.
the talk. Yeah.
Make
And
America
yeah,
healthy again.
unironically. But although, do we know for sure that it's not another worm just making decisions for him? Like, do we know? Like, have we checked?
Yeah.
Maybe there's another one. The actual alien invasion, like for the
Yeah.
brain for the worm. Well, hopefully I don't blow up, and we can speak again,
Yeah.
and maybe even see each other in person
Yeah.
sometime in
Yeah.
Kiev,
In
perhaps.
Kiev. Yeah. Yeah. Probably
Why not?
go there.
Yeah. Bye bye. Have a nice stream, and
Yeah.
yeah, see you
Thank you.
soon or talk to you soon, I
Yeah.
suppose. Bye
Yeah.
bye.
Bye bye. How do I? What do I do now? Mm. So yeah, how was that? Any thoughts? Any lingering? Mm. Wait, why isn't it working? Uh oh. Oh right, it cannot work. Oh god, it's still activated here. Hold. Okay, it's okay now. I'm back. Hello. Also, thank you for the YouTube generous donations. Alrighty. Great conversation. Thanks. Thank you, Levi. Thank you, Levi. You've always been my favorite character from Attack on Titan. True. Have you all come here from her Twitter, or because I can see a lot of people that I think I might have not seen here before. Should I introduce myself? Or are you familiar with who I am? Do you know who I am? Do you really want to know? Yeah. Biggest Polish trans streamer. Titan. Oh, okay. From Twitter. Okay. Yeah, Levi, you've always been my favorite. You kill those Titans. Also, I have to take my pill. I take women pills. Estrogen. I'll take two. Ouch. I've seen you on next stream. Is that like the stream? It's also my real name. Is your real surname Ackerman? In Time, yes, I've been on In Time. I've talked about stuff there. It's been quite nice. Yes. For today's stream, I mainly had the talk prepared because I I did an intense thing and then I sort of kind of fell asleep. Oh yeah, okay. I might have another color. Yeah. Okay. Okay, let's have another caller. Okay. Yeah, let's have a talk. Hush. Hush tu. Hush, Wabuja. Hush. Hush tu. Hush. He's just, I think he's asleep. One moment. I'll go check up on him, and in the meantime, I'll get another caller, and we'll have a language chat. That's always interesting. Yeah, I was a guest there talking about various topics. Oh God, I forgot. I totally forgot about the JD Vance's cousin that actually supports Ukraine and went to fight in Ukraine. What a weird thing, right? JD Vance's cousin that disapproved of JD Vance's cringe. Hush, 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 hush. He's asleep. The doggy's asleep. He's like, yeah, leave me alone. Please. Please leave me alone. Please don't harass me anymore. Well, you whistled and my little dog is looking for you. Oh, my dog ignored me. Okay, I whistled and my dog just ignored me. He's asleep. He's a puppy. He's a little puppy. He's a little big puppy because he's 7. He is 7 months old. So technically speaking, he is still a puppy, but he's actually quite big. But as I said during the conversation, he's just afraid of people. He's just a scaredy cat. Wait, no call? No second caller? Karasu? Oh, hello.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
I
Yeah, we're getting a call from a uh, Hungarian person that is in um, England, right? But I cannot
yeah,
hear you.
I am in UK, and I was thinking that was in your server a couple of days ago about chat of if it's good idea to have
Yeah,
English as a dominant language in US.
yeah. Although
Or
there's like there's a little bit of a robotic uh quality to
sound.
your, yeah.
Ooh, I don't know how to repair that.
It's okay. It's okay then. So what is your take on the
I will, I will,
official?
I will, I will try. But anyway, it's come up with Anastasia, right?
Yeah,
So about the language issue. And I
yeah,
think let's try to ground it in a little bit more into uh, to the ground of a family or a community that speak a language, because
yeah,
I think this is more important than a language belongs to each country or what the
yeah. I
national
remember,
identity.
I remember saying that I don't really like the idea of the United States having an official
Yes,
language.
yes, and this is a problem. So when and I will start with Ukraine a little bit, okay? Because I'm Hungarian, we learn a little bit about the issues of the Hungarian minority facing in Ukraine, and a lot of times the Hungarian far right using it cynically,
Mhm.
um, and the very nationalistic argument way.
Mhm.
By the way, uh, Orban using this, but it's unable to provide any extreme cases. So that tells me that if Orban cannot find, then it's probably Ukraine is not as bad at
Yeah.
the moment,
Also, by the way,
right?
speaking of language, I recently found, I must find it again. It's lying somewhere. Like, I don't know if it was the early 2000s or the late 90s, 1990 or early 2000s, when there was an article about Lukashenko closing down Polish language schools in Belarus.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, this is everywhere. Even Hungary. So, for example, Hungarians did that with majorization of Slavic people around, right?
Mhm.
And it caused a lot of problem, lot of enmity between the Slavic minority who lived at the time inside Hungarian kingdom. For example, this was before the First Great World War. There was a very bad language policy coming out just a couple of years before the start of the First Great World War.
Mhm.
Uh, so yeah, this is an issue. That's why I don't like when you try to create a unity, a nationalistic unity with language law.
Yeah.
But this is can be like in a spectrum. So there are some which is less offensive, and there are more offensive. And Anastasia was very clever because she touched on this, that how it was in Soviet Union and with Ukraine. So, for example, you couldn't get certain jobs, right?
Yeah.
When you didn't speak Russian, because they told that you have to officially in a workplace you have to talk Russian. But if
Yeah.
you were growing up in a Ukrainian family, right, your first language wasn't Russian necessarily. You
Yeah.
couldn't get a good job, or you couldn't go to a good university because you
Yeah.
might be not agreeable to study. And this is the main issue with languages, right? So when you're making a language law, that can facilitate poverty or uh, unable to access education.
Yeah.
And in the 90s, there was a lot of, because in the 90s, Hungary and Ukraine was actually very close together, post communist time.
Mm-hmm.
That's why you had the Budapest memorandum happening in Budapest, because it was we had a lot of good diplomatic relationship.
Right.
And at the time, it was the foreign minister was Jasenski Geza, and Jasenski was talking. He is very much an
Is
Ukrainian supporter,
Budapest
by the way.
in Hungarian?
Mhm. Budapest, yes, yeah. You pronounce it Budapest,
Right.
um,
Because I'm pretty sure it's
and
Budapest in Polish as well.
so it's Jasenski was talking that in the 90s
Yeah. Budapest.
he was also pushing a language law or a language agreement between Ukraine. But his argument wasn't about that uh, that it's not a nationalistic argument. What he said, that most of the Hungarian speaker in Ukraine cannot speak Ukrainian in within the families, right?
Right.
Uh, One of the reason because of the Russification, by the way. Nobody wanted to learn Ukrainian because in the Soviet times uh, you could get a better job by learning Russian.
Yeah.
So in back in home they were talking Hungarian, and if they went to some better jobs or wanted to higher education, they might learn Russian. But
Yeah.
Ukrainian wasn't a thing to be learned because these communities mostly talk within themselves. Or like as Anastasia told that in certain part of Russia was 70% Ukrainian speakers. So
Yeah.
they were disadvantaged then when they pushing that office should talk Russian. Blah, blah. So this is a concrete suffering of the local people then. Right? And by the way, Ukraine accepted this uh, agreement of Yasenski or arguments of Yasenski. So they kind of cooperated that maybe in the early education, maybe they should learn mathematics in Hungarian, for example, in elementary school, right?
Right. Yeah.
And later on, they introduce Ukrainian as a second language to catch up.
Yeah.
But if they would introduce the Ukrainian language at very early stage and teach mathematics, they might have a disadvantage of learning the mathematics, right?
Yeah.
So these are the concrete issues you might face, and these need to be resolved. Uh, and this is the basic issue in America with the Spanish speakers. So it's okay that you think that everybody should learn a degree of English in US, right?
Yeah.
But what about those communities where the family itself doesn't, nobody speaks English,
Yeah.
and they go into school and they might not able to learn the subject because they're they don't understand nothing there.
Yeah.
So
I
these are
think
concrete.
because
Yeah,
that's the actual real tangible result of the whole making English an official language. The fact that it, states are not really required anymore to provide mm, multilingual education.
yeah, yeah. So and this can have an effect on job applications, right?
Yeah.
So by the way, this is not only happening between people who speak different languages in UK. I live in UK now.
Yeah.
There is a lot of classes around how is your accent. So if you speak a very local accent, even English, you might not get a good job in London.
Yeah. Right.
So you
And
need to talk the proper accent. and there is a lot of
I don't
classism
remember
around.
when I was watching what was I Oh yeah, Sam Cedar talking to 20 Republicans, 20 conservative. Have you seen me watch that? Sam Cedar talking
And
to
no,
20.
no, no, no.
Yeah, so there was this whole
Oh,
sort
I
of
seen some see that. So I seen some of
okay,
the
the DEI
argument.
discussion, and it seems very well. First of all, they all kept sort of mistaking DEI with affirmative action. That was a bit weird. But second of all,
Yeah,
they said that it's when you get hired when you just don't deserve the job. But then I guess
very rarely happens, if at all.
like then the whole preparation for the WIC panel kicked in, and I have to ask, okay, what does it mean not to deserve a job? Because it feels to me like if you are born in a poor neighborhood, you have to work through school. You cannot do extra activities because you don't have the money. No one will drive you to certain places where there's no communication. Then that basically amounts to you not deserving education or a job because of your birth.
Yeah, yeah. This can. By the way, this has happened in. Let's go back to the history a little bit of our region, like Central Eastern Europe, right?
Yeah.
So this has happened in Romania in the communist time against the Hungarian speakers. Um, there was a lot of like displacement to get a majority in the majority in the region.
Mm-hmm.
So like break up the regional majority of the Hungarian minority, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you no longer need to because they thought that, and this was not uncommon in elsewhere in Soviet Union, for example, right? Despite that it's a communist country, they were very nationalistic in their thinking that
Yeah.
the unity came through a unified culture. And that was in Soviet Union, that was often mistaken that the Russian culture equals to the Soviet, the good communist, right?
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
two became kind of integrated as an idea. Uh, and you were very provincial, very not good comrade if you were not properly speaking Russian either. So
Yeah.
similar attitudes were in Romania, for example, against the minority population, and it was very bad. So a lot of people escaped from that. There is no there is no Romania was one of the only few countries in the late 80s where there was a proper revolution, bloody revolution to
Mm.
overthrow the communists because it was very oppressive. Not only against minorities, it was oppressive against Romanians as well. Right.
Yeah.
So these are real issues around the language. It's not only about national identity. And by the way, there is a problem about how majority, Russian, wanted to. The, okay, I'm a bit tired. Sorry. So the Russification or this kind of linking with how we create national identity is a real fear of people who've been subjected of these kind of imperial projects, right?
Yeah. Of course.
So, for example, Hungarians were exposed to the Germanification of
Yeah.
the
Polish
Austrian
people as
Empire.
well.
Yeah, or later on, why we wasn't as exposed in Soviet Union. The only secondary language you could learn is Russian.
Yeah.
So there was a
It was
degree of
compulsory in Poland as well. Russian.
yes, yeah. You couldn't choose any other. There was only one secondary language you have to learn, and
Yeah.
nobody wanted to learn because it was the language of the oppressors.
Yeah. That's why the moment Poland left the Soviet sphere, a lot of people just dropped. Like
Yeah,
my parents
like
spoke Russian. I don't speak it. That sort of
yeah,
means
like
something.
it was a gut rejection that there was a military here which backed up a lot of oppressive policies. I don't want to speak anymore. So there is an we have to also be patient to understand the people's reaction against it. So I don't blame a lot of Ukrainians who don't want to that they don't want to read Russian literature.
Yeah.
And there is amazing Russian literature, by the way. Amazing. A lot of them, by the way, born in today's Ukraine as well,
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, who they claim now to be part of the Russian culture.
Yeah.
But you have to be patient in that way as well. So I especially to a country that is being invaded at the moment by the by Russia,
Yeah.
by the country who was oppressing in the past.
Yeah. People, I,
What,
I mean, I
yeah,
don't feel people, I don't think people care about that argument. I feel like people just see Russia as big, powerful, with a sphere
to
of
be fair,
influence,
sadly,
and
sadly, a lot of people care about this argument. I just
no, I,
today,
what I'm trying to say is that people don't care about your side of this argument.
yeah,
People don't
that's
care to
probably
be
true.
patient. People don't care to
Yeah,
say, yeah, it's understandable that Ukrainian people would not want to read it. No, it's more like people care about the argument of people have Nazi tier laws that ban Russian and they're committing cultural
but
genocide.
that's what's not happening. What's happening at the moment that Ukrainian children, Russian speakers or otherwise, are kidnapped
Yeah,
and they won't be able to talk their family members even
yeah,
if they return home because they are not taught Ukrainian anymore.
yeah, and
Or
they're
they are
told that their
told that
relatives
don't
don't
talk with
want
your
them
Ukrainian
being.
relatives.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
it's and it's tragic. I sent you a Hungarian. Well, they talk a lot of Ukrainians and English because they're using subtitles. So a lot of part is not in Hungarian. They one of the opposition media came out a very good reportage about kidnapped children.
yeah.
And sadly, some Hungarians see that. Oh, many, not as many as people believe. So a lot of people doesn't eat up as much the Orban propaganda about Ukraine. It's
Right.
more like the regime, right? So
Yeah.
it's not necessarily all Hungarians think the same. We are in a similar situation in a degree than Belarus, that we have a quasi dictator,
Yeah.
almost 15 years in power, backed by the way Merkel, or had been backed historically. So
Mm.
here is my disagreement a little bit with Anastasia about German politics, that I think she is a bit naive, that thinking of the CDU, the German Christian party, are better somehow than the socialists. They also didn't spend into NATO, and they were very much supporting regimes that were friendly with Russia, and they
Right.
themselves were friendly with Russia,
Right.
Merkel party. So it's not I'm not necessarily seeing a drastic change just by the CDU became in power. I think probably Scholz has to accept the reality that now time to build an army. So
Yeah.
it's not that's and to be fair with Germany or the Germans, there is a historical accumulation of anti-warness
I
from the
mean, there's
Second Great
also
World
the
War.
fact that one of the purposes of NATO was to keep Germany down.
Yes, yes. So what we see now at the moment is this is a similar time what we had in the 89. So like the collapse of the Warsaw Pact, which was first a military
Yeah.
alliance, very different by the way than NATO, because the Warsaw Pact tend to occupy each other
Yeah.
instead of protecting each other.
Or rather to pacify each other.
Okay, yeah, specify. Let's call it occupation.
Yeah.
Let's call it let's call the spade spade. So, but the Warsaw Pact was also economic alliance.
Yeah.
So while one can understand the happiness of that, it's the military bloc uh, disappeared because it's a problematic bloc.
Yeah.
It's went into Prague in '68, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Polish solidarity was always had too afraid that they will call in the allies to
Yeah.
pacify the solidarity movement, and but that it was also alliance of exchanging goods, and a lot of members were specializing one or two industries and sent trade each other what they loved. So, for example, Hungary was specializing about buses, uh, public transportation, like the Icarus bus factory, or
Right.
other specialization was chemical goods and drugs. And after the in the 90s, because this trade collapsed, there was a lot of economic instability and fallout. And
Yeah.
exactly this will play out now, in my opinion, with US, NATO, and the US allies. Trump is pushing to a new system which will collapse the economical cooperation, what is developed.
Yeah.
Um, and obviously, the whole system was exploiting other countries. Like I'm not don't want to whitewash the problems between U.S. trade and um, Latin America, for example, or
Right.
European Union and or France and Nigeria.
Right.
Like France getting uranium exploited from Nigeria
Right.
very cheaply. So I don't want to escape these problems, but we will have a tragedy like how the Soviet Union was collapsing, caused an economical collapse as well in the region.
Yeah.
So we will have a similar, and we have the NATO collapse. Essentially, it's already collapsing very fast. It's collapsing. Nobody can trust NATO anymore.
Yeah.
Since Trump administration, nobody can trust. We need Eu- European Union need to build an army now,
Yeah.
and even Germany had to accept this because NATO worth nothing. It's like a toilet paper at the moment.
Yeah.
We cannot expect US to defend any NATO members.
Yeah. And that includes the nuclear umbrella as well.
Yeah. By the way, and this is the irony in the whole thing that US hegemony is weakened by all
Oh
of
yeah.
this
Oh yeah.
because all of the nuclear uh, defense mechanisms are dependent of the NATO allies in Europe or the cooperation between Canada. So the cooperation between Canada is called NORAD, and obviously through NATO you had this sensory system which would detect launches of ballistic missiles early on. Now, if NATO collapses, US is much less able to sense any kind of attack.
Yeah.
So Trump doesn't make America great again. Trump makes America collapse very
Yeah.
fast.
I mean, the truth is that he's been, I've told this to Anastasia, he's been using the same spiel ever since the 80s. America's
Yeah,
in collapse. We're being exploited by everybody. He didn't have the word tariff back then, but he basically said he received calls from people at one point, and someone said, do you want to just tax your allies or something? Would you tax your allies? And he went, no,
do,
no, I wouldn't call it a tax. It's not a tax. I just want the others to pay their fair due. He was using the exact same
do you think
rhetoric.
he? But do you think he didn't learn the word of tariff, the meaning at that time yet? So
I
I don't think so that he understands the meaning of tariff either today.
I mean that's true, but he didn't use it then as like his favorite word. Was what I'm saying. He didn't
Mm.
incorporate
But
it
maybe
into
maybe
his
he didn't
spiel
even
then.
know the word.
Yeah, maybe. But the only two things that I was mistaken in the talk with Anastasia. I remember there were two things that differed then from now. One thing is the homelessness, and the second thing is he got asked by one caller, are you in favor of free trade with Canada? And his answer was, I'm in favor of everything regarding Canada because they've been one heck of an ally. Oh, how things
Mm.
change.
I mean, the homeless, he changed, right? Because in that time he was positively talking that we need to resolve the homeless people, the problem with
Yeah.
the homeless people, right? Even if his policies might be not as positive either at that time, at least in narrative, he was a bit more positive.
Yeah.
At the
He said he
moment,
wants to protect the homeless,
yeah, yeah.
and that is
Um,
the ultimate topic.
so back a little bit about how quickly things can collapse, right?
Yeah.
Uh, and this, in this case, a little bit what's happened in the 90s with the Warsaw Pact and Soviet Union. This will be different with US and this sphere of trade and interdependence, both military and economic.
Right.
But the economy is massively changed since then. You have a you have a kind of economical system of digesting, like that we have very streamlined productions,
Yeah.
very we don't store items as much as before because we can order it and then we will print it. We will, and mostly goes back to China. A lot of things goes back to China.
Mm.
So there is an interdependence there too. So if you tax China, that most of the consumers in US will feel the rise of the cost.
Yeah.
Uh, but in case of Mexico and
That was always the point of tariffs, by the way. The point of tariff was to uh, make the things costlier from abroad,
so that
and
you can
then to
you
so you
can
can
make it
prop
at
up.
home.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you can prop up the
yeah.
thing inside. You can prop up the home
Okay,
market.
this is here's the difference, right? So
Yeah,
you have an American car company, and that car company owns properties in or have
Mexico
uh,
or Canada.
or
Yeah.
Mexico and Canada
And the interesting
because
part is because you said like apparently the problem is even worse than what you said, right? Because you said that they would come from Mexico to the US and they would be more expensive, right?
yeah, no, yeah, I know what you want to say. So what's happening? The final product, the car, is might be done in US,
Yeah.
but a lot of times it will travel between Canada, Mexico,
Yeah,
US.
you'll take
Like
part
one
from
part.
like to simplify, you will
Yes.
take a part from Mexico,
By the
take
way,
it to Canada, it will be transformed
this is not
further.
only
Yeah.
happening with cars. You have to think about fruits as well sometimes. So fruits, vegetables. Sometimes what's happening that you grab the fruit in a place, then because how they streamline the production. By the way, I don't even like to use the streamlined because a lot of cost is external.
Mm-hmm.
So like when we travel a lot of items back and forth, that will create pollution, right?
Yeah.
And if I'm not spending on that company doesn't need to spend on repairing the pollution or trying to prevent the damage because of the climate change, then that's an externality, right?
Yeah.
So that's the
And
state has
under
to deal with
Trump,
it.
absolutely those things
Oh,
will
it's
be thrown out
collapsing.
the window.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So that will be a direct effect of a lot of people's life, like the drinking water. But back again, that not only complex products like cars will be like this, fruits. So you maybe they pick up in I don't know in US maybe, okay, and then they send all of the fruits into a third country
Yeah.
where they package it and then they bring back to US. Now even the basic food items might be affected directly of these tariffs.
Yeah.
So it's crazy. I mean, we don't our economy doesn't work the same way, and I don't necessarily mean that our economy is good at the moment how it works.
Mm-hmm.
But if I'm using a tool, I need to understand how our economy works at the moment and what will it cause as an effect.
Yeah.
And I believe that they don't understand it.
I mean, they don't
Or they
understand how
have political
basic.
goals.
I mean, they don't seem to understand what basic um, institutions within the country do.
Yeah, Yeah, and this is the other craziness. I don't know what people think about what is bureaucracy for. And I'm not a fan of necessarily the over bureaucratic systems, but bureaucracy is necessary sometimes. So, for example, calculating somebody's paycheck is not an easy thing.
Yeah.
I had to do it once in my life. I was running a small NGO, and we had only one employed.
Yeah.
To calculate his taxes the fees we had to pay for social security, stuff like that, it's not easy.
Yeah.
And if you don't calculate it well, their payment might not arrive at time,
Like
right?
there's that's I think when people talk about bureaucracy they mean two different things, and because they think of this one thing they also apply to a different thing. Like when people usually think bureaucracy is bad, they think of the workers that sort of interact with people, and they think in Poland, for example, of things like, oh, you cannot send this thing electronically because you have to fill it out in paper,
Yeah,
right? And there are free
yeah.
forms
But
that you have
even
to fill.
okay, but even sometimes this problematic stuff is necessary, could be, right? So I need to first understand, and there are some anthropology field now who is thinking about okay, let's track because now we live in the digital age.
Yeah,
Let's track a data.
right.
For example, how we put information for the refugees or the immigrant,
Yeah,
how they appear as a data in our systems and what happening with that data. So without knowing exactly what's happening with this, I'm not even sure to decide it if it's good or bad. Like let me let me give you an exact example of a
mm-hmm.
recent history in UK. This is the Windrush generation. You might heard about it.
Right.
It was a huge uproar in immigration issues
Mm-hmm.
in David Cameron. I think it was late David Cameron started.
Yeah,
But Windrush was a boat that brought immigrants in from Caribbean after the Second Great World War
yeah.
because UK needed workers because of the war, right? Rebuilding,
Mm-hmm.
and there was also a lot of that. So they needed young, able people to help, and they were promised to have become citizen eventually.
Yeah,
Uh, and what's happened in the 2010s round that they thought, okay, let's destroy the records of the Windrush tickets who had bought the tickets who arrived here because all these people citizens, right?
yeah,
But then they, after this the destruction of the tickets of who been in the boat, who arrived, they started to deport a couple of years later the people who
right.
came, the Windrush generation, and their children and their grandchildren, because they couldn't prove that they citizen and not illegal, so-called illegal immigrant, right?
Yeah,
And this was a simple information destroyed, which people thought is unnecessary, right? Because it's a bloody boat. It's just a boat information who arrived. Who
yeah,
cares about it after so many years? But it became relevant information, and people's life being destroyed because they cannot prove it backwards that they are citizen.
yeah. But I think what I was talking about is a little bit different. I wasn't talking about the substance. I was more talking about the form, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, like how people perceive it, right?
No, I was talking
Like
about the like the literal form. Like you cannot uh, apply to certain things digitally because the system has not been set up yet. It's all done on paper, or you cannot. That used to be a thing in Poland. That is, for example,
yeah,
that was an example of bureaucracy that was not really efficient or good. Like
Okay,
to
but
fill
you have
in
to
a
you okay.
paper, you would have to go to a specific area in the city.
Yes, but I do have a problem when they thinking about that. By the way, if I have to criticize Zelensky,
Yeah,
I don't like his argument about the moving to the digital era of administration,
yeah,
because many of us might not be able to use the digital equipment. So you need to provide it. A lot of people might become cut off, and then all I can see about the bureaucracy that is efficient, right?
I mean,
Because efficient,
technically
so okay,
speaking, you sort of, yeah.
okay, but technically speaking, I can make a very efficient healthcare system by people not using it. It will be a very efficient because only people who can afford it will use it, and everything will be fast,
Yeah, but
right? A lot of people
I'm
love.
talking about something even more fundamental. Like for example, let's say that you have 5 offices in Warsaw, right?
Yeah,
And you want to there's you want to apply for a passport, right? There's an application form to get a
yeah,
passport.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And let's say
So,
you go
okay,
from office 1, you take the paper form from office 1 and you apply it in office 5. And in office 5 they tell you, "Oh no, this application for a passport, the exact same thing that we do here is different from what we use here in office 5. So you
yeah,
throw
yeah.
this away and you fill out the office 5
This is
passport."
Kafka. This is Kafka. He wrote about it already in his because he was working in the Czechoslovakian bureaucracy, right,
Yeah.
or even before, perhaps. Yeah, it's understandable. But what I'm talking that even in these inefficient system, right,
Yeah.
even in these inefficient system, which seems aimless, seems mindless that I need to go into 5 different locations to do the same, and I need to fasten it down.
Yeah.
And I might be right, by the way, that it's inefficient and sometimes it's that duplicate information or task. But without exactly understanding that what is happening in this system, if I'm going there and just saying I need to destroy it because it's inefficient, bureaucracy is bad.
Oh, it's
I
not like
might
I want to
destroy.
destroy it. For example, like in my
I know you
example,
not. I know that you are not. But like the people around Trump, for example, right?
yeah, but that's because they
They
think of this and they don't think of like there needing to be a system of processing
oh,
information to begin with.
true, true, but I don't think so that the voters themselves like that. So, for example, a lot of Trump voters living in social benefits, right?
Yeah, of course.
Or depend on the security systems.
Yeah.
And they might be not happy that if they're losing that.
Well, yeah.
But what they believe is what you're telling, that these people will resolve this duplication, the inefficiency, right?
Yeah, yeah. Like for
And
example,
they
the infamous lie that is still being pushed about dead people receiving social security in the US. Yeah.
that's so bad. And Musk gets the data, that one, because once these people being younger
Yeah.
and appeared in these systems,
Yeah.
and they are still in the database, but as a dead person, so
Yeah,
you
I mean
no
it's
longer
just that
pay for them.
it's a very simple thing. People that were born in 1920 and before do not have listed date of birth, the date of death. That's it.
Yeah,
And they don't receive any social security, so it's not even a problem. That the part about them receiving social security, that people being sent money, is just a blatant lie that is
yeah,
repeated time and
yeah.
time and time again.
And this is again that they don't exactly care about how the system works, even if it's inefficient. I want to understand it to make it better, right?
Yeah, but this isn't even inefficient. It's just like a thing.
Yeah,
If you
this
know
is
how
efficient,
to,
by the way.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
like there's
So
like,
I might destroy something which is efficient and necessary, and then it will hurt if the social security will be stopped for many people. It's not only people who will suffer who have social security. People who have small businesses and live from people, for example, a coffee. a coffee shop,
Yeah.
and people goes there spending their social security payment, right?
Yeah.
Because they also want to eat. Now,
Yeah.
if they won't have money, they won't go to that coffee shop. So
Yeah.
what will happen? They need to close it down, or they firing the people who are working there. Now that person lost their job, or people who lost their businesses need to apply for social security system.
Yeah.
If I reduce the number of people who can work on applications, then there will be a backlog. So
Yeah. It's
all of
like
these
with the Sam
people,
Cedar thing where people said that social security should be completely liquidated, to which I, wow.
it's insane. These people
You
doesn't
know
know
what
where
the
they.
really funny thing about the Sam Cedar thing was? There were people that were in such disbelief about the conservatives that were there that they convinced themselves that Sam Cedar was the conservative and the
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
conservatives were the,
Catbird.
yeah,
Catbird was that person. Catbird is a very like I'm not in Twitter, never been
yeah,
really. But I think Catbird is a famous far right Twitter user. I think even friendly with Musk. And he was posting this about Sam Cedar being the Republican MAGA
yeah,
person.
yeah. It's silly.
It's and and my fear is that so many people will suffer for
The database
unnecessarily.
thing with the weird ages shows how Elon doesn't know even know how anything about coding works, which is what he used to do.
Yeah, yeah. This man. Okay, I had the belief when I was younger and naive that people who are elite, or people who are in the top, even if they are not good person and not necessarily get their money because they are good, at
Mm-hmm.
least they not stupid people.
Right.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
I think Musk is shattered completely this idea, and not
Yeah.
only Musk. I seen Peter Thiel shaking of fear when he had to talk about the assassination of that healthcare CEO. And then he was asked by, what is your message for all of those people who've been struggling to pay their healthcare?
Yeah.
And Peter Thiel was shaking, like afraid, like I cannot believe how idiots they are, how spineless, how much uncharismatic people. Really, like it's this is a joke. Comedy is that not because of the leftists. Comedy is that because you cannot make comedy anymore because it's brought into politics became a satire.
Yeah. It
Politics
just,
became
how do
a
you
comedy,
satire something that is so, it
but it's
feels like
already
such a
so
joke.
idiotic.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's already so idiotic. What you cannot make this up. I cannot make a sketch like this. Monty Python would be dead today because Monty Python sketches are brought into Trump's America.
Yeah.
The Ministry of the Silly Walk. That's the Minister of Silly Walk now is Elon Musk Dodge. That's the Ministry of the Silly Walk.
Yeah. Dodge. Mm. It's,
All right, I probably I won't take your time anymore. I'm also going back to sleep. I have to do math classes tomorrow.
yeah.
I'm helping my
I
friend.
probably should go to sleep soon as well.
Uh,
I haven't been sleeping
One
very
day,
much.
if you wish, we could watch that Hungarian report of the
Okay.
from about the uh, kidnapped
Okay.
children.
Okay.
They
Yeah. Yeah.
made a
Yeah.
couple of good interviews as well.
Yeah.
So they made an interview about a person who school orphanage director who helped hiding children, and these are close to the war zone. I think now it's part of Ukraine,
Yeah. I've
Ukraine
heard there
controlled
was a
territory.
lot of mismanagement
Yeah,
by the directors of the orphanages who just waited for
This
instructions.
one saved people. So this he kind of did the right thing, right?
Yeah.
Uh, but how he had recording, so there is recording there when the Russian going inside and trying to take away the children. military person.
Yeah, but I've heard at least from the organization that we've been cooperating with that many orphanage directors just sat on their hands and waited for instructions, and so they didn't
Yeah,
like evacuate the children,
yeah.
so it was too
Probably
late
they were
to.
afraid their own life, right? And
Possibly,
they
yeah.
were,
And they didn't
yeah, and
evacuate the children, so it was too late when the Russians
yeah,
came. So a lot of kidnappings
yeah,
happened because of that as well.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a heavy decision, and a lot of trauma will be there, a
Mm.
lot of trauma for
Yeah.
decades.
Oh
Even
yeah.
if we get the best peace deal, these will be appearing in literature later on, couple of 10 years later, maybe,
Yeah.
about how what kind of heavy decisions people had to make.
Yeah. Like
And
even
if you,
like children are
yeah,
traumatized even when they were
yeah,
brought to
yeah,
Poland when they had like
yeah,
care, you know,
yeah,
when
yeah,
they like the places where they were put in made sure that their schedules corresponded to those that they had in Ukraine, that they had Ukrainian, that they had their Ukrainian caretakers accompany them, etc. And there was still a sense of trauma,
yeah,
missing home,
yeah,
missing friends, missing stuff.
yeah. I mean, in this reportage, it's too short to be a documentary, but they interviewing another organization, not where you've been, I believe, or if they say, don't think so, it's the same.
Mm.
Uh, and the person was talking about that they need to give counseling and watch for teenagers who
Yeah,
return
that's
who are
that's that's what
suicidal,
that's what the
self-harming,
yeah that is what the
and
organization that I
yeah,
cooperate
yeah,
with, that I sort of get
they
interviews
doing the
from.
exactly the same, yeah.
Yeah, they do the
And this is
counseling, they do the
and
they
this
give
is so
accommodation to live in even for people
yeah,
temporarily.
and this is so bloody hard because you might have a returning kid who cannot handle a teenager, cannot handle all this trauma and might end their life.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
uh, and at the time we have 10 years of this, 10 years.
yeah,
A lot of children experience these 10 years.
yeah.
It's shocking,
And
and I
also a
don't.
lot of children, like as the psychologist said, a lot of children, because there are children that will sort of have a family to lean on in these hard times, and they will
Mm,
think, oh, I'll be saved and I'll return to my family who care about me. But there are children that come from difficult families to begin with, and those
yeah.
children have a much
So
tougher time.
you might have an abusive parents and
Yeah,
anywhere
yeah,
else in the world.
yeah, yeah,
You might
exactly.
have an alcoholic person.
Yeah,
You may, and especially because the parents themselves dealing with trauma. Okay, one of my best friends is from Sri Lanka. I will help her to with mathematics tomorrow
yeah,
because she wants to study, and she survived the genocide against Tamils. She has a lot of trauma. She has, and she kind of went to therapy, dealt with it, but it's still there. A lot
yeah,
of things what people won't get through, and that will be given into the daughter of hers. So there will be generational traumas there.
yeah,
And this is so important to talk about, and I'm very, very angry of any people who lessen these problems, right?
yeah,
And okay, this is not only in Ukraine. You have it in the same problem with children, little bit different in structure, but in Gaza as well, right? We
yeah,
creating generations of people who grow up in a highly traumatized childhood and will be affected for life,
yeah,
and their children and their grandchildren.
yeah. I think people after the wars, the war tried to combat that by not really speaking with their children about
Yes,
the
usually
experiences.
usually the first generations. Yes, yeah. I mean, your family is a survival, so you might experience directly. But that was the same in my own grandfather, uh, and he is not a Holocaust survivor, right? Because
Right.
he's He was Hungarian. Hungarians were in the wrong side, so he was put in the Eastern Front, by the way.
Yeah.
So he was fighting somewhere near to Ukraine, and his own family was own unit became a partisan unit. So they joined into the Soviets eventually.
Yeah. Like
Uh,
like my
but
grandfather.
he was traumatized. He
Yeah.
was traumatized by it. He
Like I
was
know
17 years old,
like
and he didn't want to talk about it, but
yeah.
he
Like
was
like
refusing to get a pledge.
yeah. Like my grandfather on my mom's side, the
Mm,
professor, he never really spoke about the war.
yeah,
Well, he talked. He once, uh, sort of bragged about the few times when he should have died but survived. Like
yeah.
when he said that he was with his mom in a room, they were sleeping, and a giant bomb fell in through the roof, but it just didn't go off. It
Yeah.
just lay there on the table and never
But,
exploded.
you see Anastasia how brave she was.
Yeah,
She could die at any moment on that interview. That
yeah,
one of the drone can hit her home, right?
yeah,
She has to live this daily, and she's dealing very well. Like
yeah,
a lot of people inside when they are there, they won't collapse. So when you have a traumatic environment, you might adapt to it because that's how
yeah.
we are. But
But
that doesn't mean that
uh,
ages later they won't be affected, right?
yeah, it's like when you're in the situation, you deal with it. But when the situation comes down, that's where the effects sort of hit.
Yeah, yeah. You might for a lifetime watching for the drone sound for a
Yeah,
lifetime.
yeah, yeah,
And you might even teach that for your children,
yeah.
or
Or
your
like the
children thinks
kid
that you
that
are
I interviewed,
crazy.
that said that that Russia showed its true face because he thought it would be just mines, but they went in with tanks
Yeah,
and planes, etc.
and you remember the translator, right? I was telling you that look at the translator. What the translator wasn't translating
Yeah,
because the translator thought that is normal.
yeah, yeah,
So the kid was talking that this was in 22, right, when they marched
yeah,
into to his place, and that the Russian soldiers attacked the electrical grid.
yeah,
The and the translator thought that is normal. I don't think so that he forgot to translate it because
yeah, yeah, yeah.
because it is so normal now that the Russian always attack the
The
electrical
electric,
grids
yeah,
that he didn't even thought that it need to be translated.
yeah,
But
yeah,
it need to be translated. It need to be talked about because it's an evidence that the Russian troops always attack the civilians.
yeah.
Always.
The interesting thing to me was about attacking civilians that whenever there was a bomb threat in the occupied city, as the boy told me, Russia never actually bothered with air sirens,
Yeah,
and that he actually, for the first time, heard air sirens go off when he was on the unoccupied side.
yeah, yeah. This is yeah. This is why it's so important to do uh, interviews, reports, documentation about these events. And this is why it's very important to check that if 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 in this kind of conflict one of the four start to eradicate the journalists or people who are
Yeah,
recording, Be- because that's an evidence of a potential knowing war crime or atrocities want
yeah,
to hide it, right?
yeah. There are a
Uh,
couple of prominent conflicts in recent years that where one side has been um,
yeah, eradicating the
killing
journalists.
journalists. Yeah,
Yeah. Like the 22nd Ukraine, absolutely. You could see in recording that British journalists going there and they are shot at.
yeah, and also
Oh, yeah,
hotels are targeted where
yeah,
journalists stay.
yeah. And that's still, it's not only that time,
Yeah,
it's still going
it
on.
happened
Yeah.
very like a week or even less than a week ago.
And by the way, this is the same inside Israel and Palestinian conflict. The same. Israeli military absolutely target any journalist who wants to go into Gaza, trying to
Oh yeah, many
inform.
journalists were just bombed. in Gaza.
Yeah, uh, and aid, right? So
Yeah,
this can be often an evidence that there is a systematic or systemic cover up of war crime, at least a
yeah. By
cover
the
up
way,
of
this
war
created
crimes.
big tension between Poland and Israel because a Polish aid worker
Yeah,
was killed, and Israel said, "Well, we're not really going to send any compensation to the family of the killed aid worker."
yeah. Okay. What we are expecting when they are talking that Nazis did right?
They had a point with
You,
the Roma people.
with
Yeah,
Roma people. Yeah.
yeah,
Okay. Talking about Roma people, one additional thing, and we are going back to the beginning about the Hungarian speakers in Ukraine. And this is about a little bit talking about nationalism. So,
yeah.
uh, most of the Hungarian speakers in Ukraine are Roma, which
Right.
means that theoretically, the Hungarian far right love to use them as a trump card against nationalistic attitudes or talking about Great Hungary before, right?
Yeah,
But when they were escaping from the Russian invasion in 22, a lot of these Hungarian speakers came in the border and they were discriminated because they had browner skin,
yeah,
because they were Roma. So what
yeah.
are we talking about nationalistic? I want that Roma family to be able to speak Hungarian, but that doesn't mean that I necessarily want them to join into Hungary and then get discriminated.
Yeah,
In fact, I believe that this kind of ironically the invasion did a lot of good for the ethnic tensions within Ukraine,
right.
because I've seen a lot of Roma people, for example, feeling that I'm attacked as well, I'm occupied,
Yeah,
I might have a conflict between non-Roma Ukrainians, but I will join to the fight because my livelihood is in danger.
yeah,
And I seen Hungarian speakers in Hungarian speaker Ukrainians who joined and were helping to build up uh, local defense,
yeah.
because they thought that I need to defend my where I born, right?
Right. Yeah, yeah,
So they might have a conflict before, but that doesn't mean that people are not. There is no ethnically coded uh, political leaning. Like just because you are a Russian speaker doesn't mean that you love Russia as
yeah,
a today system, right?
yeah. Of course.
Those Russian speakers in East Ukraine are still fired
Yeah,
by the same
every
Russian
day.
army,
Yeah,
yeah, or killed or murdered, right? So why should they love the Russian army? Why should they love Putin?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Alrighty.
We did a circle, so we went back
Yeah,
to the beginning.
we went. It's a circle of life, and the stream has been like
Yeah.
3 hours. So I think I might finish it soon. And
You are tough as well. You are streaming so late and long. I'm not tough.
yeah, I might finish soon because I haven't really slept a lot since yesterday,
Yeah.
since last night.
Okay, get some sleep and we'll talk later.
Okay.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Thank you for coming on. Okay.
Bye bye.
Bye bye. All right. Think I'm going to finish for today. Thank you all for being here. I hope I have gained a viewer or two tonight. Okay. I hope we can have like we're building a big reoccurring audience. Beautiful. Beautiful to see. So who are we rating? Who are we rating tonight on YouTube, for example? Who are we rating? Uh Who do you want me to raid? Ouch. Vegcom. Food shops. Oh god. Who are we like raiding? Vegcom. Alec Gunter. I guess Philip August is not here to instruct me who to raid. Unfortunate. Mm. Okay, I'm going to go to Vegcom. Okay. We finish. I'll see you. Bye bye. Bye bye. Finish here.